I asked whether she stocked a map that showed the geography around one's own island using one's current position as the reference. She was briefly surprised and settled fast, since plenty of people buy that sort of map to hunt treasure in unknown waters, and she probably filed me as one more treasure hunter. She said they naturally had them, that the item was called a mist map, and that it took the holder's present location as its base point and lit up the surrounding geography. She added that because of what it was, the price ran a little high. That was excellent news, and I only hoped it would not push past the auction, since waiting for my own lot to sell first would have burned the whole day. Lee Chong-an was mildly surprised such a thing existed, since despite her standing she did not know much about curiosities like this, having always poured herself into raising her own strength. I asked her to introduce the mist map properly, and she invited us into a small room at the back. We drew stairs the whole way, since a shopkeeper of the Unjong Trading Company is not a small person, and anyone she serves in person must be worth serving. The room ran to about 30 square meters, with boxes stacked inside, and she asked how effective a mist map young Master Ha wanted. I told her to explain it because I did not understand mist maps, and I let my eyes drift to Lee Chung-han as I said it. She caught it. Her face gave nothing away, and inwardly she was distinctly annoyed, since I was clearly pointing out that she did not understand them either. Shopkeeper Woon laid it out cleanly. A white-quality mist map showed the general situation within 100 kilometers and cost around 2,000 white stone. A green one covered 1,000 kilometers at around 10,000. A blue one covered 5,000 kilometers at around 50,000. A purple one covered 10,000 kilometers at around 150,000. And her shop held only 4 of those. Gold quality mist maps she did not have at all. By the end of it, I was fortunate and pained in equal measure. Fortunate because I carried over 80,000 white stone, which put a blue one within reach. Pained because a disc that lit up 5,000 kilometers cost 50,000 white stone. This was the Lord Continent, where the sea runs on past the edge of thought, and 5,000 kilometers is a corner of a corner. I told shopkeeper Woon to bring me a blue quality mist map. She fetched a blue wooden box, opened it, and lifted out a disc of blue jade with mist crawling so thick across its face that nothing could be seen. Then she warned me that once a mist map is used, it displays for only half a day, and that the disc shatters afterward. So I had to record it quickly. She gave that warning because she could see it was my first time handling one, and because I had walked in beside Lee Chung-han. Anyone else would have walked out ignorant, since a stranger who leaves and then finds a problem rarely dares come back to complain. That surprised me and did not worry me, since I was carrying a Mando treasure pearl and copying a map was exactly what the pearl was for. I thanked her and said I would take it, and she told me this one was a fine product even among blue quality goods, and priced it at 60,000. It hurt, and I bought it anyway, because I had had enough of being blind to my own neighborhood. When she said cash or card, I told her we would use the card and pulled out my flower card, hiding my personal details and leaving only my name and assets visible. Both women looked at it with surprise, shopkeeper Woon most of all, because she could not place me now. This young master carried a flower card from the Mansong shop in the Flower Fairy world, and yet the card was still white, which meant he had spent only 10,000 white stone there. On top of that, he was visibly curious about everything around him, like a man who had never been in a city. She fell back again on the theory that I had come out of some small world. Lee Chung-han gave me a long look and said nothing. She was now certain I was sitting on a secret, since a flower card from the Mansong shop does not land in an ordinary person's hand. She kept it to herself, because everyone owns secrets and prying at them recklessly blows back on the one prying. With the business finished, Xiong Peonga led us up to the 5th floor and into a restaurant called Jinsu Pavilion for lunch. In the private room, Lee Chung-han handed me the menu, then told Xiong Peonga to fetch the auction manager and say she had something to auction, and the girl went. She asked whether I had chosen. I handed the menu straight back and told her she could choose, since she was the one paying. She took it without comment and started ordering, and then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Looking down the prices, she had worked out exactly why I refused to order. I had dropped 60,000 white stone on a map without blinking, and she had taken me for a rich man, and now she could see the performance for what it was. The smile came and went in a flash, and she passed the menu to the attendant. When she turned back, she found me looking at her, and she frowned and asked why I was staring. I shrugged and said I had not expected her to actually smile. She looked genuinely puzzled, as though the news that she had smiled was new information. Then she told me to hand over the item and to say it was hers when the manager arrived, and I gave it to her. The dishes started arriving, better than 10 of them, and I groaned inwardly at what this stuff must be worth. She had guessed correctly, of course, since the prices had embarrassed me out of ordering. The dishes ran to dozens and sometimes hundreds of purple stone apiece, and by my rough count, the table came to nearly 100,000 white stone. These people spend a fortune on lunch and do not blink. She told me to eat, and started, and her movements were unhurried and elegant in a way mine were never going to be. My eating was not ugly, but nobody would have called it graceful either. Then somebody knocked. She signaled the attendant to open the door, and Cheung Pyonga came in with an old man behind her and sent the Jinsu Pavilion attendant out of the room. The old man asked what treasure Miss Lee had called Old Do out here to auction. He sat down without being invited and poured himself a glass of wine. She did not mind at all, since a steward who runs a branch of the Yonjong Trading Company owes her no deference. She handed the item across and asked Steward Du whether it could be auctioned. He took a sip of his wine first, then took the fragment and examined it properly. He said it was the tomb of the Sound Kill King. He added that there was no telling what lay inside, but that the sheer weight of the name made the map a treasure on its own. Then he remarked that Miss Lee's luck seemed to be running well, looked over at me, and asked who this friend was. She said only that I was a friend she knew. He laughed out loud and told her she was not being straightforward, since this young brother was obviously the heavenly mandate lord she had been assigned to receive. He said it flatly and blew my cover across the table, and everyone in the room went still. She stared at him and asked how he knew. He told her that not only did he know, but half the top floor of the Yonjong Trading Company knew by now. Then he drank another mouthful, stood up, and told us not to worry, since nobody makes trouble inside the Yonjong Trading Company. He said he would not stay, having an auction to prepare, and on his way past he smiled at me and wished me luck. After the door shut, her face was still grim. She said Yun Un had actually put people on her. He was the only name she could reach for, and remembering how conveniently he turned up at the Merit Pavilion, she was certain of it. She looked at me and said quietly that she was sorry, and that I might be in trouble because of this. I ate another piece of meat. There was clearly a reason the stuff cost what it did, and I could not identify the animal to save my life. I told her it was fine, since everything had to wait 2 months regardless, and people do not generally attack a man for no reason. She looked at me and hesitated, and did not say what she was going to say. That silence stopped my chopsticks. I put it together and asked her not to tell me there were other men besides Yan Un who liked her. She nodded and said many people were pursuing her and that the forces standing behind them were not small. I went quiet for a moment, then picked my chopsticks back up, which apparently baffled her because she asked whether I was seriously still in the mood to eat. I told her that past a certain number of enemies, one more stops itching, and that food this expensive should not go to waste. Then I took a sip of wine and said we could talk about the future when the future arrived. That was not bravado, since I honestly did not know what I would be in 2 months, and there was no guarantee any of them would find me at all. She looked at me a while longer and let the subject go. After the meal, the three of us went up to the top floor for the auction. Cheung Pyonga stole glances at me the whole way, having never stood this close to one of the famous heavenly mandate lords before. We came off the spirit energy elevator into a corridor laid with white carpet and walked its length to a door with 2 guards in front of it. The moment they saw me, the 2 exchanged a look and stepped forward a pace. One asked Miss Lee to show her pass, and she took out a golden one and handed it over. He barely glanced at it before saying there was no problem in inviting her in. She put the pass away and walked through, and I moved to follow, and the 2 guards stopped me flat. Her face went hard and she snapped that I was her friend. The guard was clearly nervous and said it anyway, that he was sorry, but nobody enters the auction without a pass. Her voice came back down, and Cheung Pyonga beside her could feel the anger under the calm. She said she remembered that a gold pass allowed its holder to bring a friend into an auction. The guard asked her not to make things difficult, since they were only following the rules, and today's auction was a Yonjong level auction, and she knew the rule for those. Her expression turned genuinely ugly. She knew for a fact that today's sale was a high-level auction and nothing more, which meant somebody in this building was manufacturing it. She could have forced her way through with me in tow, and doing it would only have piled more trouble on my head. So she looked at me with something close to apology instead. If she asked me to wait outside now, I would be humiliated in front of the whole floor and a joke in Cheonmo City by nightfall. A few minutes earlier, in a room none of us knew existed, a phantom image hung in the air showing the corridor and the 2 guards. At that point, Lee Chung-han had not yet arrived. 3 people were watching it. A young man in a white robe sat in a chair. A middle-aged man in a black robe stood nearby. And surprisingly enough, Steward Du was there too. Steward Du asked, flat and openly unimpressed, whether what the second young master was doing did not break the rules. Baek Pyong smiled and said carelessly that he could hardly be breaking rules when they were in fact holding a Yonjong level auction this time. Steward Du told him he had already relayed the message to Lee Chung-han exactly as instructed, and had now gone along with something this absurd on top of it. He said the favor of finding an item was repaid in full, and that Baek Pyong should stop coming to him in future. This second son of the president of the Yongjong Trading Company was lying with his eyes wide open, since nothing in today's lots came near Yongjong level. Steward Du had played along only because Baek Pyong wanted Lee Chung-han, and because a debt was a debt, and now the debt was cleared. He turned to go. Baek Pyong told him to wait and look at something, then produced 3 spirit cores. Had I been in that room, I would have known them instantly for territory cores. Steward Du's eyes lit up. He took all three and studied them, then said they were genuine territory cores out of this heavenly mandate lord trial, and asked where they had come from. Baekpyeong told him that was not his concern, and asked only whether 3 territory cores were enough to justify a Yeonjong-level auction. They were more than enough, and Steward Du said so with real excitement. He had not expected the man who spent his days fawning over Lee Chung-han to pull off something of this size. Baekpyeong said they should settle in and enjoy the show, and by then the 3 of us had already been stopped at the door. Watching her turn toward me with that ugly look on her face, he could not keep the smile off his mouth. This was only about making her lose face, a small lesson in the fact that not every stray who wants to walk beside Lee Chung-han gets to. So what if the stray was a heavenly mandate lord? He had killed a few of those out in the Chonmo Islands already. Then his smile froze because the heavenly mandate lord had produced a silver pass. Steward Du was startled too and wondered where the kid had gotten one. Had Lee Cheon come prepared? Her expression did not look like a woman who had planned for this. She was in fact just as surprised as anyone, and she recovered quickly, since it was hardly the first time I had produced something nobody expected. I handed the silver cast to the guard and told him to check it and stop blocking us if there was nothing wrong with it. The 2 examined it and found nothing wrong at all, then looked back up at me. This was not remotely what the young master had told them to expect, and the whole scene had come off its rails. They traded a glance, handed the pass back, and said there was no problem, and that I should go in. I smiled and went through the door with Lee Chung-han, with Chung Peunga leading. Back in the room, Baekpyeong watched my back disappear and asked, gloomy now, where the kid had gotten a pass. Steward Du offered the theory that perhaps his own reminder to Lee Chung-han earlier had prompted her to prepare in advance. He knew that was almost certainly not the answer, and he had nothing better to hand the second young master to soothe him with. Baekpyeong took it and smiled, and said that in that case the kid could count himself lucky. Steward Du could not make the pieces fit. He asked why, if the second young master intended to deal with this heavenly mandate lord, he had gone out of his way to remind Lee Chung-han about him at all. Baekpyeong smiled and asked who had ever said he was going to deal with the heavenly mandate lord. And then Steward Du remembered what his own subordinates had reported earlier, that Yun-un and Lee Chung-han had arrived together this time. So that was how it stood. Steward Du nodded slowly to himself, having never expected the second young master to be carrying cunning of this order. The auction hall was already half full when we walked in. People standing in knots and talking, and the talking stopped in pieces as Lee Chung-han crossed the floor. A good number of those eyes slid off her and landed on me. Yan-un brightened the moment he saw her and came over smiling, telling her she had finally arrived and asking whether she would like to sit in his private box. She looked him over with open distaste and asked when he had gotten this good at pretending. Then she told me we were leaving, and she walked past him without giving him so much as a parting glance. I had nothing to add to that. I had no warmth for that whole crowd either, and watching him get brushed off in front of a full room was not exactly a hardship for me. Behind us, his face went dark and stayed dark a moment before he pulled it back into shape. He could feel that her attitude toward him had dropped through the floor since the last time they spoke, and a drop like that always has a reason under it. He told the maid in white to go find out what had happened that he did not know about, and she acknowledged the order and left. Then he told the rest of his people they were going back up to his box. We took the stairs to the 3rd floor, where the private box is open only for gold passes. On the way in, I had counted 5 floors in the building, and I still had no idea what kind of person got to sit on the 4th or the 5th. I dropped into a seat, picked up a piece of fruit, took a bite, and asked Miss Lee whether she thought anyone would show up on those top 2 floors today. She sipped her water and said that if this really was a Yeonjong-level auction, someone might well take the 4th. I asked why the 5th stayed empty when she had told me this was the Yeonjong Trading Company's highest grade of sale. She laid the whole ladder out for me. The Yeonjong Trading Company ran 4 grades of auction: bronze, silver, gold, and Yeonjong. Silver came once a month, gold once every 6 months, and Yeonjong exactly once a year. A gold auction would put a decent stack of gold quality items on the block, and a Yeonjong auction added special items whose value could run past a lot of gold quality tools. None of that, she said, was enough to bring down the people who sat on the 5th floor. Those people were effectively the ones who ran the Lord Continent, and very little in this world could still interest them. So I asked whether the 5th floor existed purely so the company could say it had. She said that was part of it, then gave me something better. Sometimes the Yeonjong Trading Company held special auctions with genuinely rare treasures. She had heard of tools beyond gold quality turning up in them, and that was the kind of thing that brought those figures out to bid against one another. Hearing that there really were tools above gold quality knocked me sideways for a second before I got hold of myself. I had already put 100 transformations on a gold quality tool and been told my talent quality was insufficient to upgrade it. That message had never meant the ceiling did not exist. It meant I was the one who could not reach it. I asked her whether she had ever seen a tool above gold quality. She said her father seemed to have one, though she did not know what it was. Her father, the Ice Thorough Emperor. So I asked whether he could go up to the 5th floor of this building, since I was getting curious about the man. She shook her head and told me he could only enter the 4th. I turned and looked straight at her to see whether she was playing with me. A man ranked 18th on the spirit ranking could not go up one more flight of stairs. I had seen more than 20 boxes up there when we came in. I asked her flat out whether she was lying to me. She said no, and told me this world was far more complicated than I thought, and that her father was strong but that plenty of people stood above him. I asked whether it had something to do with the small world, and her expression shifted just enough to tell me I had hit it. My curiosity about that small world got heavier every time somebody flinched around the subject. I had no idea what level I needed to reach before my territory could become 1. I was clear on the price of admission though, which was enough strength to sit across a table from Chianno and negotiate. Flower Fairy was the proof of that. Her voice went cold. She told me this was not something I should be poking at, and that when strength is lacking, knowing too much is its own kind of injury. I thanked her for the reminder and said I had only been curious. She told me, flat as a slab of ice, that curiosity kills cats. I dropped it, moved us onto other things, and we talked while the floor below filled up. This woman could sand the paint off a wall with her mouth. Up in his own box, Yun-Un sat with a maid in black working his shoulders and asked the maid in white what she had found. She reported it straight. Somebody had spread the news that Ha-Shin was a heavenly mandate lord, and by now a good part of the building knew it. His face closed over the moment he heard it, because he understood at once that he had been played by somebody else. That explained why Lee Chung-han had turned on him. She had decided he was the one following her. He had been following her. That was the part that stung. That he had done the thing and still gotten framed for it by a stranger who had simply gotten lucky with her guess. He asked whether they could find out who had done it, because after today his standing with her had frozen back to where it started. The maid said it was probably Baek Pyong, since Ha-Shin had been blocked at the door on the way in, and that block had almost certainly been arranged by him. Yun-Un said the name with all the warmth of a knife going into a drawer. Then something else occurred to him, and he asked how Ha-Shin had gotten inside at all, and whether Lee Chong-an had brought him through. The maid described the whole business at the door. He raised an eyebrow at that and said this heavenly mandate lord was clearly not as simple as he looked, which explained why Chong-an let him stand so close. So he gave the order. After the auction, put someone on Ha-Shin and probe for his secrets. If the opening was there, and if it was not, let the man walk away untouched. Above all, nothing was to point back to him. He had a mild interest in whatever Ha-Shin was hiding, and no interest at all in offending Lee Cheong-han over a nobody. Set against her, my value did not register. I had no idea any of that was happening. I was still eating fruit and quietly mining Lee Chung-han for everything she would tell me, and by the end of it I finally had a picture of where I actually was. The Lord Continent was called a continent, but there was almost no real land in it, only ocean and islands of every size scattered across it. That was why a lot of the natives called this world the Lord Sea, or Cheonmo Star, or the Cheonmo Sea, depending on their mood. The whole thing was carved into 7 great seas. The spirit domain held 3 of them, the Chilsong Sea, the Seoljong Sea, and the Shattered Island Sea. The demon domain held 3 of its own, the Maehyel Sea, the Extreme Ice Sea, and the Nansong Sea. The 7th was the odd one, spanning the gap between the 2 domains. It carried a whole pile of names depending on who was talking about it, though the Heavenly Mandate Sea was the one that stuck. The others all described the same water in terms of hope, or chaos, or outright annihilation. That last sea was where almost every trial taker like me ended up, and it was where the previous Heavenly Mandate trials had been run. What made it strange was that it had never truly been developed. Nobody had properly charted its geography or its currents, so sailing into it was sailing into a mess. It paid out in both directions too. Get lucky and you found a resource island and made your fortune. Get unlucky and you met something at the top of the food chain and stopped existing. The strangest part of all was that the sea had been shrinking a little more with every Heavenly Mandate trial that passed. I asked where her father's territory was. She said the Seoljong Sea, Seoljong Sea, Chonghan, Li Chiol, the Ice Thorough Emperor. That family named itself after the weather and then went and matched it. A voice came out of the hall below welcoming everyone to the Yunjiang Trading Company's auction and announcing that due to unforeseen circumstances, this sale had been upgraded to the Yunjiang level. I had been about to ask her something else and let it die in my throat, because I wanted to watch this. On the stage stood a middle-aged man in a black robe, a long way off, and his voice still landed inside our box as clearly as if he were standing at my elbow. Whatever spirit energy trick carried it, the whole hall heard every syllable. More spirit energy technology. This place solves problems I did not even know were problems. The Bronze Pass crowd on the ground floor went off like a kicked hive. They could not believe a Yunjiang level sale had landed on a day when bronze holders were allowed in the door. Half of them guessed it had something to do with the Destiny Zone appearing, and every one of them wanted to know what the mystery item was. Then somebody said out loud that the eldest daughter of the Lee family had walked in with a heavenly mandate lord on her arm. The room turned in one motion to stare up at our box, since most of them had never laid eyes on a trial taker. I watched it happen, and there was nothing on earth I could do about it. She remarked that I was famous now. I told her fame is what fattens the pig before somebody comes for it with a knife. Being a name among a crowd of new lords was useful, because a name buys leverage. Being a name in a room where everything on the floor has teeth just puts you on the menu. The host waited out the noise before going on. He said he believed most of them were waiting to hear about the item that had raised the grade of the sale, and that it would surprise everyone. Then he warned them to come with their funds ready, because missing this one for lack of money would be the kind of regret a person carries around. Then he asked them to welcome the company's gold medal auctioneer, the Heavenly Enchantress, and the hall came apart cheering. I asked whether this Heavenly Enchantress was somebody. Lee Chung-han told me the woman had a second title, the Heavenly Enchantress Demon Emperor, and I nearly dropped my fruit. An emperor-tier existence, working as an auctioneer. She was quietly curious herself now, because whatever the Yeonjung Trading Company was putting under that woman's hammer had to be a treasure. She ignored the rest of what I said, took out a communication tool, and told her father that something was going on at the Yeonjung Trading Company. Then I definitely had to see what an emperor-tier auctioneer looked like. Li Qiao was drinking tea in his mansion when his daughter's message arrived, and it stopped him mid-cup. He had sent her to the Destiny Zone, so he asked her directly why she was standing in the Yeonjung Trading Company. She never answered the question. She simply recounted what was happening there and put the tool away. When he could not reach her again, he sat with the familiar mix of anger and helplessness that girl always left him holding. He asked what her situation was. The old man behind his chair took out a communicator, made an inquiry, and reported that the young miss had brought a heavenly mandate lord out of the Destiny Zone to attend the auction. That got the man's attention, and stacked on top of the odd news his daughter had just given him, it made his decision for him. He stood and said they were attending this auction too. I glanced at Lee Chung-han and swallowed the rest of my questions about the Ice Thorough Emperor. Down on the high platform, a woman came out, and the whole room leaned toward her. She looked around 30, in a white dress that had been designed by somebody with a grudge against fabric, her back almost entirely bare, and one long leg showing through the slit as she walked. She was mature and magnetic and completely aware of it, and I said out loud that she lived up to the title. She welcomed everyone to the Yeonjung Trading Company and said she would be hosting, and her voice came out soft and sweet and went through the room like warm water. Something in my chest lit up, and I blurted out a question about whether her voice carried charm magic. Lee Chung-han said it did, but weakly, and that most people could shrug it off. I nodded and decided to keep my mouth shut for a while. The first item went up as a phantom image hanging in the air with its information written beside it. It was a magic scroll. Thunder Sea, gold quality, which on use formed a sea of lightning with a radius of 300 meters, and could damage experts up to level 28. My eyes narrowed. Used at the right moment, a thing like that was worth an extra life. I asked whether they put something that good first just to warm the room up, and she said the first 2 or 3 lots were usually decent. The Heavenly Enchantress gave the scroll a short introduction, and said the effect spoke for itself, amounting to a spare life at the worst moment of yours. Then she opened the bidding at 30 gold stone with a minimum raise of 10 purple stone. Somebody in the hall took it at 30 immediately. The raises came in on top of each other. 20 purple stone, 50, 70, then a clean gold stone, and the room warmed up fast. I watched the corner of my own mouth twitch. The people down in the cheap seats were rich. I was sitting in a gold box entirely on borrowed luck, and my bank balance had no business being in this building. I said out loud that a gold magic scroll running this expensive was insane, since it was already up in the range of a purple troop nest. She explained it without looking at me. Troops come out of a nest at a low level and have to be raised, whereas a scroll like that saves your life the second you tear it open. In the time it took me to say one sentence, the price had climbed to 36. Lee Chung-han pressed a button on the table and put in 40 gold stone. Down on the floor, they saw the gold box on the 3rd floor light up and heard a woman's voice, and they quit on the spot. Even a determined bidder was not going to outlast whoever was sitting up here. The Heavenly Enchantress asked out of habit whether anyone wanted to go higher, waited one breath, and closed it. 40 gold stone once, twice, 3 times, with congratulations to the distinguished guest. I looked over at her. Spending 40 gold stone had cost her about as much feeling as spending 4 white stone would cost me. Converted, that was 400,000 white stone, and she had not moved a muscle. Show a little emotion for the money, woman. Then again, this was somebody who could drop tens of thousands of white stone on lunch, so I let it go. The second lot came up as a building blueprint. Psionic interference tower, gold quality, which once built released mental attacks that scrambled enemies, with the weak ones simply collapsing and dying on the spot, effective out to a radius of 5 kilometers. Building it took 2,000 stone, 1,000 spirit wood, 100 dark element gems, 30 ghost stone, and 10 units of shattered sound eternal gold. My eyes lit up all by themselves, because area damage anchored in my own territory would have solved several problems at once. Then I remembered what my curse looked like, and put my eyes away. The Heavenly Enchantress added one line the information panel did not carry. That 5-kilometer radius included the sky, which made the tower an anti-air weapon. The hall erupted, because anything coming at a territory from above tends to be the thing that ends it. She opened at 50 gold stone with raises of no less than 1 gold stone. A silver box on the second floor took it to 55. Someone else went to 60, then 62, then 63, and the bidding ran hotter than it had for the scroll. It had crawled up to 82 when a gold box on the third floor said 100 gold stone and killed the room dead. She asked once whether anyone wanted to go past it, got silence, and sold it at 100. I heard whose voice it was. Yun Un. I asked her whether an item was worth 100 gold stone. She said that for the person who needs it, it is very cost effective. Thanks for the non-answer. The third lot came up as a huge cage draped in red silk. The Heavenly Enchantress pulled the cloth off and the room made a sound. Inside the cage was a person, or close enough to one, an orc a full 3 meters tall, thick through the chest, white-haired with a white tail behind him. The information called him a mutated purple lightning tiger tribesman, an epic hero at level 21, master of 8 skills including 4 epic ones, carrying the talent Thunderstorm. I said out loud that the numbers were impressive. Li Changnan said he was alright, and that only Thunderstorm was worth looking at. I ignored that. She and I were not living in the same tax bracket. The mutation was in the lightning itself, which was white rather than the ordinary purple, and half again as strong. She opened at 20 gold stone with no minimum raise, and the bid stacked up a single stone at a time, 21, 22, 23, with a lot of people clearly interested in owning him. A silver box on the second floor took him in the end at 30. Those 3 lots did their job and left the room hungry. What came after them was no longer gold quality, mostly blue with a few purple pieces mixed in. And half an hour slid past without my noticing. I watched every one of them go under the hammer and learned more in that half hour than I had in a week. Then the Heavenly Enchantress said the next item was a little unusual, but that she believed everyone would find it interesting. The image that appeared in the air was a bone fragment, and the text beside it described the Soundkill King's tomb route map, which was to say my bone fragment. I sat up. Down below, people started arguing about it, half of them with no idea who the Soundkill King had been, the other half looking suddenly very awake. A tomb was another word for a pile of somebody else's treasure. She said plainly that since nobody could know what was inside the tomb, the map was hard to value, but that the Soundkill King's king rank identity alone made it worth 20 gold stone. She opened it there with no minimum raise, and invited the room to bid. Then nothing happened. The whole hall sat quiet, and my stomach went down an elevator shaft, because a lot that fails to sell is a lot you carry home in your pocket. Before 3 breaths were out, somebody took it at 20, and somebody else came straight over the top at 21, then 22. A silver box on the second floor said 25, another second floor box said 30, and a third voice said 33. Every single voice was my net worth going up a step, and I sat there feeling each one land. I asked why the thing was this popular. She told me that sound-based professions are a narrow field, which makes skills for them hard to come by, so a giant of that field is always in demand. She added that there were rumors the Soundkill King had once killed an Emperor-tier opponent while fighting above his own rank. A man's voice came out of a gold box on the third floor at 50 gold stone, taking it up by 10 in one bite. A woman answered from another gold box at 55, and her voice was clear and thin and strange, like wind coming off ice. Li Changhan showed surprise for half a second before she buried it, which told me she knew who was speaking. The man went to 60 and asked 5th Chengjiam to let him have this one. She came back at 70 and told him she was sorry, that this item mattered a great deal to her, and that she would not be giving it up. He sat silent for one breath, and then said he would not fight her for it. The Heavenly Enchantress knew there was nothing left in the room, and closed it out, giving the item to Miss Fifth. I said out loud that I was rich, because 70 gold stone was 700,000 white stone. I had walked in hoping for 30, and walked out with more than double it. Money like that meant my territory could grow faster in the early stretch, and put real distance between me and everybody else. Li Changhan said it was 63 gold stone. I asked whether they took a cut, and she nodded and said 10%, 7 gold stone, 70,000 white stone, gone into the pocket of a company that had done nothing but hold up a picture of my rock, and I could have summoned entire troop types with that. The auction rolled on and I stopped paying attention to it, because I was already spending 63 gold stone in my head, and 63 gold stone is not a sum you spend carelessly. By the time I looked up again, the sale had reached its last stretch. The Heavenly Enchantress announced the finale piece of the Yunjung level auction, and every head in the building came up. Even I got interested again because this was the item that had pulled Lee Chung-hun's father out of his tea. A maid carried something up on a wooden tray too far away for me to make out, and then the illusion bloomed over the stage and I stopped breathing for a second. I knew that object better than anyone in the room. I had 51 of them sitting in my possession. It was a territory core. Lee Chung-an came straight up out of her chair, which told me more about its value than any appraisal could have. I asked her, honestly confused, whether the thing was that precious. She said that with one of those, a native of the Lord continent could become a Heavenly Mandate Lord and enter the Heavenly Mandate trial. It was an opportunity to change a life at the root. Her voice was not steady when she said it. She wanted one, so I offered. I told her I happened to have a spare territory core and asked whether she wanted it. Whatever else she was, she had actually helped me, and that made her something close to a friend. She said no and explained why. Unless I gave her my own territory core, another one was useless to her, and any core taken by force rather than handed over willingly simply does not work. That knocked something loose in my memory. The first time we met, she had asked whether I would sell her my territory core, and I had privately filed her under crazy. So that was what she had been asking for. I told her there was nothing I could do about it then. She said it was fine and that she would bid. Down on the floor, the crowd had read the information by then and the noise doubled. The Heavenly Enchantress pressed a hand down through the air and asked for quiet, and the voices settled. But every eye in the hall stayed nailed to that core. Heavenly Mandate Lord. For these people it meant everything opened up at once. 2 months from now, when Chanmo's rules loosened, they could pour their family's resources into a brand new territory and finish the transformation, matching whatever their parents had built. She did not give them time to talk themselves into a frenzy. She told them there was no need to fight over the first one, since there were 3 territory cores in this sale. Then she opened the bidding at 500 goldstone with raises of no less than 10. A silver box shouted 600. A gold box on the 3rd floor said 800, and skipped the whole middle of the ladder. 8 million white stone before the bidding had even warmed up. This was going to end somewhere insane. 1,000 goldstone, 10 million white stone in a handful of breaths, and the numbers were still climbing. Then somebody said 2,000 goldstone and the entire building went silent, because the voice had come off the 4th floor. Every head in the hall tipped upward at once. The big shots had joined in. The quiet did not last. Another 4th floor voice, a woman this time, went to 2,500. Someone else answered that he had not expected the White Phoenix Empress to want this one, and that a treasure like this was not something he could yield. He put 3,000 goldstone on it. The White Phoenix Empress came straight back at 3,500 and told Mo Xiong not to yield on her account, since everything in this life comes down to what a person can do. Then a rough voice off the 4th floor said 5,000 gold stone and announced that Yon Soa Chen intended to have this territory core, and there was nothing stingy about the way he said it. Li Chiol answered from a 4th floor box at 6,000. The first man went to 7,000. Li Chiol went to 10,000. The hall broke open. 10,000 gold stone was 100 million white stone, and that is not a small number even for a powerful territory. The Heavenly Enchantress did not wait a heartbeat before counting it down and selling it, because 10,000 was more than enough to satisfy her. In his box on the 4th floor, Li Chiol let out a long breath. That sum was not nothing to him either, but he considered it worth every stone. His daughter would carry the identity of a Heavenly Mandate Lord now, and with his help behind her, she stood a real chance of climbing past him. I said out loud that these big shots had to be suckers, spending 10,000 goldstone on an opportunity made of fog. Establishing a territory does not mean a person accomplishes anything with it, and all that family backing does is nudge the odds. She told me that opportunity is the most valuable thing there is, that no opportunity should ever be allowed to slip, and least of all one that can change a destiny. I said she was probably right, and added that I would love to know which big shot had thrown 10,000 goldstone at it. A man with that kind of money had to be terrifying. She said without any particular emphasis that it was her father. My toes tried to dig their way out through the soles of my boots. I had just called the man a sucker with his daughter sitting close enough to touch. I could not make myself turn my head, so I picked up the water glass and took a long, careful drink instead. It bought me a few seconds of dignity and cost me nothing. Tactical hydration. It has saved better men than me. She glanced over, felt exactly how much I wanted the floor to open, said nothing at all, and smiled somewhere I could not see it. The Heavenly Enchantress told the losers not to despair, since 2 territory cores remained and everyone still had a chance. Then she reminded them these were the last 2 in this sale, and that missing them meant missing them forever. The urgency in the room jumped straight up. She opened the 2nd core at 1,000 goldstone with raises of no less than 100, highest bid taking it. The 4th floor came in immediately and came in high. Yan Seo Chen shouted 5,000. The White Phoenix Empress bid 6,000. Another voice said 7,000. In a private box on the third floor, Baek Pyong watched the numbers climb and told Steward Du that he had not expected territory cores to be worth this much. He added that the old man's work this time could be graded excellent and might even be worth a promotion. The old man laughed and said the credit belonged to the second young master and that he was only warming himself at another man's fire. Baek Pyong's eyes moved. He said that if these things were this valuable, they could simply wait for the next opening of the Destiny Zone and find a way to collect more. He had never imagined this kind of return. As far as he was concerned, a man who could enjoy himself in Xiaonmo City or on his own land had no reason to walk into a heavenly mandate trial. He had heard how many people came out of those in a box. Steward Du told him, with real regret in it, that a territory core cannot be used after the third month, which made this the only window there would ever be. Baek Pyong asked why, since he did not know the mechanics and had only acquired his core from the Cheonmo Islands on the advice of his subordinates. Steward Du explained that if a territory has not been established by the second month, the Heavenly Mandate trial is already counted as a failure, and the core goes dead. Baek Pyong said he understood, and behind his eyes something started moving that he did not share. Then Steward Du said the auction was nearly over, and that he needed to go down and prepare the banquet. The Yeonjong Trading Company always closed a Yeonjong-level sale with one, to keep the powerful lords and the company on warm terms. Baek Pyong told him to go. Once the door shut, Baek Pyong asked whether that Ha Shin had put anything up for auction today. The man standing behind him said yes, the route map to the Soundkill King's tomb. Baek Pyong told him to go tamper with the man's currency because he needed to track his location, and the man left at once. Then he turned to the last person in the room and told him to find 2 dead soldiers king rank and have them arrange for Ha Shin to hand over his territory core voluntarily. That one left too. Alone, Baek Pyong smiled to himself and said that a man who had been in the trial for a single month would be interesting to watch escaping. He did not need the core for himself. He simply intended to turn it into a very large sum of money and buy himself a following with it. Meanwhile, I was walking out of a private box behind Lee Cheong-han with no idea that a second man had now decided to spend 2 king rank lives on killing me. I asked her, since the business was done, whether she would send me back to the Destiny Zone because I did not want to miss Cheonmo's teleportation. I had my goldstone already and I wanted out. There was nothing left for me here except a steady supply of strangers who hated me for reasons that had nothing to do with me. She told me there was no rush and that the teleport would be announced when it came. She would deliver me herself and not make me late, and in the meantime I was coming to the banquet. She simply decided it. There was some self-interest in it, but she genuinely thought it was good for me. She pressed the point by saying there would be a great many powerful lords there, and no harm at all in knowing them. I told her there was no point. Our stations were nowhere near each other. Our interests were not tied together, and no big shot alive helps a stranger for free. She stopped walking for a beat, then started again, and admitted I was right. So we would skip the socializing. But she said I was going to meet her father, because he was very curious about me. I was curious about Li Chiel too, and I still did not want to be in a room with him. He was a tiger and I was a lamb, and honestly the lamb was giving me too much credit. But she had already said it out loud, and refusing outright was not on the table, so I decided to take it as a free look at how these people actually regarded Heavenly Mandate Lords. I told her fine, I would meet her father. She nodded, satisfied. What she wanted was her father's read on my character, because she was young enough to know her own judgment was not as sharp as his. She believed I was decent, and she preferred certainty to belief. If nothing went wrong, she would be entering the Heavenly Mandate trial herself tomorrow with that territory core, and once she did, the two of us would inevitably be doing business. Getting me checked out now would let her sleep. She did not say a word of that out loud. Cheong Pyonga led us to a banquet hall already full of people. I had barely finished scanning the room before a middle-aged man came walking toward us. He stopped in front of Lee Chung-han, looked me up and down, smiled, and asked whether this was the friend she had mentioned. She said yes, and gave him my name. He said I looked decent enough, but that my strength was nothing special, and he had read me at a single glance. What he read was only the surface, and it did not include the bloodline sitting under it. She said mildly that I had been in this world for 1 month. That stopped him, and then he nodded and allowed that he could hardly demand more than that. Standing there while a father and daughter graded me like livestock was not my favorite experience of the day. I kept my mouth shut, because there is no argument to make when the only thing they are grading is true. He said we should talk somewhere else and led the way. Lee Chung-han told Cheong Pyong not to follow and to go do something else, and handed over a gold stone on the way past. The attendant thanked her fast and left considerably happier than before. With the door shut and the three of us seated, Lee Chiol went straight at it and said the real reason he had wanted to see me was Cheong-han. I made a noise that was not quite a word, because I had no idea where that was going, he explained. He had bid on that territory core so his daughter could enter the Heavenly Mandate trial. Although he would be helping her, he was still worried, because nobody can promise what 2 months will do to anyone. So he hoped the two of us would watch each other's backs. That at least made sense of the whole afternoon. I asked why. Since Miss Lee was already king rank, she needed anything from me. He said the heavenly mandate trial is not a measure of a person's individual strength, because it is a lord's trial, and what it tests is the territory as a whole. I nodded slowly, thinking that the first month at sea had probably been the only stretch that measured the lord alone, and that everything after a territory went up would be measured somewhere else entirely. I asked Lord Li Chiol whether he knew what the coming test would be, because I wanted something usable out of this conversation. He shook his head and said every heavenly mandate trial is different, and he had no reference to give me. That was a disappointment, and I nodded anyway. Then he asked whether I would agree to his request. I said of course, since more friends means more roads, and Miss Lee had his backing behind her besides. Also, refusing was never an option. When a tiger asks whether you are moved, you give the answer the tiger wants and you give it quickly. He laughed out loud, told me to hand my contact details to Changhan, and said she would reach me once her trial started. I passed them over. The three of us talked a while longer before going out into the main hall, where the banquet was starting. I did not stay near Li Changhan. She was a lit lamp in a dark field, and a man standing next to her catches everything that gets thrown. There was a second reason too. The tables were loaded with natural treasures that raise attributes, and I quietly worked my way down them, pocketing everything worth taking, because Windsor and the others could use every point of it. Only once every last natural treasure had been cleared off the linen did I sit down and actually eat. Somebody behind me asked how it tasted, and I said very good before my brain caught up and turned me around. There was a woman standing there, 1.8 meters of her, in a white and gold gown, and even smiling she carried a weight that pressed on the air. I asked, not entirely sure, whether she was the White Phoenix Empress, since I had heard that voice bidding earlier. She admitted it without any fuss, then looked at me with mild surprise and said she had not expected a heavenly mandate lord to turn up at a Yanzhong auction. I shrugged and told her that if it had been up to me, I would not have come either. Strange thing, I respected the Emperor Tyr, and standing in front of them I kept feeling relaxed instead of terrified. Maybe it was just that every Emperor Tyr I had met lately turned out to be easy to talk to. Elder Mok, Li Chiol. Now this one. Then a new voice cut in, arrogant all the way through, confirming my name and announcing that its owner intended to do business with me. I turned. A middle-aged man I did not know, and standing beside him, Yan Un. The White Phoenix Empress went cold in the face and told Jian Sochen that business has a rule about who arrives first. He waved that off and said the only rule he knew was that the highest bidder takes the goods, then looked me over like a man checking a horse's teeth. I kept a small smile on my face and hated every second of it. I had thought the Empress was decent company. Listening to the two of them, she was every bit as arrogant as he was, just quieter about it, the kind that keeps the blade under the coat. The two of them were standing an arm's length from me, deciding between themselves who about to make the deal, and neither had thought to ask me anything. By then I had it. They wanted my territory core. The last 2 cores at the auction had gone to other people. Neither of these 2 had landed. One, and a heavenly mandate lord standing around in the open was the obvious next stop. She gave him a cold look and told him to let ability decide it. Then she turned back to me smiling and said she wanted to buy my territory core, that I should name my price, and that she would meet it. She meant it. Her own territory had hit a wall with no growth left in it, and she wanted to raise a new one that still had room to climb. Before I could open my mouth, Yan Sochen rolled straight over her. He told me he would give me 5,000 gold stone for the core, and that from then on I would enjoy his protection. My smile went out. Compared to the Empress, this man was genuinely unbearable. The cheapest territory core in that hall had sold for 10,000 gold stone, and he was offering half of it in the tone of a man handing alms to a beggar. And that last clause of his was not a courtesy. A man who can protect you is telling you what he can do to you instead. I looked around the little circle. The Empress, faintly smiling. Yon Sochian, loud and pleased with himself. Yan Un off to the side, openly entertained, waiting to see what I would do. So I smiled back and told them both, politely, that I was not selling my territory core. 3 faces froze at once. Even the bystanders who had drifted close enough to listen started talking among themselves, because nobody had expected a flat refusal. The White Phoenix Empress went into persuasion. She told me to think it over carefully, since the heavenly mandate trial is a matter of life and death. Then she asked why I would not take a comfortable sum and live quietly in Xianmo City. Yan Suchen just went cold and asked whether I understood the consequences of refusing him. I played stupid and asked whether this was not supposed to be a transaction, and whether a man who does not want to sell can be forced to. I did not back off, and I had my reasons stacked up. My territory core was already used, so there was nothing to sell in the first place, and even if there had been, selling it would have been the stupidest trade of my life. This was the Yunzhong Trading Company, where neither of them would dare start anything. Walking out with Lee Chung-han meant walking out safe, and once I was back in the Destiny Zone, I could go straight home to my own island. After that, I could build in peace. As for what these people might do once Chamo City's rules loosened, that was a problem for a version of me with more options. I had exactly one road, and I was on it. Yan Seo-chan sneered and told me I had guts, then gave me a long look and said he doubted I would live long enough to use that core. I told him cheerfully that he really did not need to worry about my health. He made a disgusted noise and walked off, which confirmed what I had already worked out, that he could not touch me inside this building. The Empress still would not let go. She told me to think about it and promised a price that would satisfy me. I told her there was no need, since I was not selling. On top of that, I had already given the Ice Thorough Emperor my word to help his daughter, and I could not go back on it. That landed. She remembered I had walked in with the Ice Thorough Emperor's girl, which meant we knew each other, and the Ice Thorough Emperor had certainly bought a core, so the story held together. She was badly disappointed. There was nothing left to get from me, and the only thing left was hoping that the people she had already sent out came back with good news. She sighed, said she would not press me further, and left. I watched her go and went back to my plate, because the food was excellent and none of this was going to change. The matter was closed, and the story went around the hall anyway, and for the rest of the evening I was the thing everybody was talking about. Lee Chung-han came over a while later and asked whether I was alright. Her face was carved out of the same ice as always, but there was worry sitting behind her eyes. I told her I was fine and that nobody would dare move on me here. She nodded and said she would take me back to the Destiny Zone soon, that they would not dare act there either, and that I would be safe. Then she asked about my month adrift at sea, and we talked about that instead. In a room upstairs, Yan Sochin told his son to find someone to deal with that kid. Yanun told him no. He wanted me dealt with as much as his father did, and he could not have it happen now. If I died, Lee Chung-han would put it on his account, and his pursuit of her would be finished. His father asked why, and Yanun laid the reasoning out for him. Yan Sochen admitted it was awkward. That Cheong-han girl was an excellent match for his son, one of them carrying the 3 Sun Purple Flame bloodline, and the other the 9 Underworld's Cold Ice bloodline. Putting the two together would pay both families back many times over. He badly wanted his son to win her, because it would raise Yanun's strength directly. He also kept seeing my face and could not stand the idea of simply letting it go. Then Yan-un said that although the two of them could not act, there was nothing stopping somebody else from acting. His father wanted to hear it. The plan was to bait Baekpyong into moving, then tip off Lee Chung-han, which would clear her suspicion of him and leave her permanently disgusted with Baekpyong. One rival removed for free. And the best part, he added, was that with the timing handled properly, I could be made to die directly in front of Lee Chung-han. Yan So-chen laughed out loud and called it 3 birds with 1 stone, then told his son the matter was his to run. Yun-un told his father not to worry. Outside the Yunjung Trading Company, I climbed into Lee Chung-han's carriage and we lifted into the air toward the Destiny Zone. She said the portal would open in an hour, and that after this parting she did not know when we would see each other again. As a guide, she knew exactly when her assignment ended. I laughed and told her that with a little luck it might not be long at all. I still remember that on the 3rd day of every month the spirit and demon domains went to war. That was where I had met Wang Mok. With luck, that was where I would find her again. Then the arithmetic caught up with me. They had territory cores, not ship cores. I glanced at her and kept the question behind my teeth, because a woman with her resources had certainly already solved a problem that small. We came down in the Destiny Zone and I stepped out of the carriage. She stayed inside and lifted the curtain to talk to me, saying she would not walk me any further because she had to go prepare for the Heavenly Mandate trial. I told her to go handle her business and that I would wander around here on my own. Then she held something out and told me to take it and not to refuse, and to consider it compensation for the trouble she had brought down on me. I said she had been helping me and that trouble finds its own way to a man regardless, but the look on her face was not one you argue with, so I took it. She said goodbye, dropped the curtain, and the carriage lifted away. I opened my hand and looked at it. The Thunder Sea Scroll, the one she had bought for 40 goldstone with the expression of a woman paying for a cup of tea. Rich women are bad for a man's discipline. Another few days of this and I would forget how to work. Something hit me across the back and put my heart through my ribs. I spun around and it was Recur, asking what beautiful dream I had been having. I said that was a hell of a way to greet a person. Recur asked who the woman was and observed that the great number 1 rookie turned out to be a kept man. I said to knock it off, that she was a friend. Recur made a noise of pure disbelief and said that making a friend that influential on a first visit to Cheonmo City was a story only an idiot would swallow. I let it go, because I was innocent and there was no version of the truth I could actually say out loud. I asked how things were going out at sea. Recur said the same as always, nothing like me with a territory already standing. The words came out flat and tired. ending in a sigh about not knowing when an island would ever turn up. I said to hang on, because I expected people would start founding territories one after another once the new month began. Li Chial had told me that in his own heavenly mandate trial, most lords established their territories in the second month, and while every trial differs, the shape of it should hold. Wrecker said fine, and would take my word for it, then offered to take me to dinner. I turned it down, since I was still full of banquet food and I had not had a proper look at the Destiny Zone yet. Recur said in that case there was no point hanging around, having spent the whole day in line at the Merit Pavilion and being close to starving. I smiled and we split up. I drifted through the Destiny Zone with no particular direction, ducking into shops as they came. It wore off fast. The stock in there was low grade, mostly white items with the occasional green one, and there was nothing in any of it for me. It made sense though. The lords who come through the Destiny Zone have no money, so cheap goods are exactly what belongs on those shelves. Then the global announcement came, saying the portal would open in 10 minutes, and that everyone should wait inside the Destiny Zone. Xianmo repeated it 3 times. I said out loud that it was finally time to go home, and that one short day had managed to hold a remarkable amount of trouble. Once I was back, I would put everything into building the territory and raising my own strength. Meeting Li Chenghan and standing in a room full of big shots had sharpened it for me. I was nothing next to them today, and I fully intended to be one of them later, or something past them. Then 2 middle-aged men in plain black clothes stepped into my path and asked whether I was Ha Xin. I asked who they were and started counting exits. One of her suitors, maybe. Except nobody sends people to kill a man inside Chanmo City. Attacking a heavenly mandate lord here gets you wiped out by Chanmo's rules the instant you throw the first punch. Whether you succeed or not, the hatred could not possibly run that deep. Then Yan Soqin's face came up in my head. Commander of the West Capital. That one might. They said that since I was Ha Xin, I should get ready to die, and came at me without another word. I had no read on their strength and no intention of testing it politely, so I opened up with everything at once. Demon dragon form, demon dragon armor, demon blood boiling, fighting demon dragon. The transformation surprised them and slowed them down by exactly nothing. I got my arms crossed in front of my chest in time to take the hit. It threw me backward into a wall hard enough to bring blood up my throat, and every part of me felt like it was coming apart along the seams. King rank, epic level, both of them. They had spent 2 king rank lives on a nobody like me, which meant both of them were about to be erased, and I let myself smile about it, because the moment they attacked, Qianmo's rules would take care of the rest. Then they came off the ground and charged me again, completely intact, and my smile died on my face. In a shop nearby, a man in black watched all 3 of us and said quietly that he had not expected those 2 to be carrying a treasure that shielded them from Qianmo's rules. Across from him, a man in a blue robe said it looked like they would not need to act at all, since this Ha Xin was finished. He asked why their young master cared this much about somebody so small. The man in black said the word was that the kid had been getting very close to Li Chenghan. The blue robe said that explained it, and the man in black added that he would still like to know whose people those 2 were, Yun Un's or Baek Pyong's. The blue robe said it hardly mattered, since whoever they belonged to had just done the pair of them an enormous favor. The other man nodded. They were death warriors too, and being a death warrior does not stop a man from wanting one more year. Even an ant fights to keep breathing, and they were not ants. On top of that, dying because their young master was losing a popularity contest struck them both as a poor trade. At that moment, I did not know a second pair of killers was waiting on me, and I did not know that Li Chenghan had just been intercepted on the road. Yan'an called out to her that he had urgent news. She was in her carriage, and she frowned before lifting the curtain and finding him riding alongside with alarm all over his face. She asked what it was, because she was on her way back to bury herself in heavenly mandate trial preparations, and had no time to spend on him. He told her he had received word that Baek Pyong had arranged death warriors to take Ha Xin's life inside the Destiny Zone. Her face changed. She thought instantly of how I had been deliberately blocked at the Yunjung Trading Company, and everything about it went wrong in her head at once. She did not waste another word on Yan'an. She turned the carriage around and went back the way she had come. He watched how fast she moved, and how little she hit it, and even though it was exactly what he had planned, it made him angry. She actually cared about this Ha Xin that much. He could only hope Baek Pyong's people were not idiots and would finish the job properly. Whatever else happened tonight, he intended to be somewhere else while it did. Mistake a quiet tiger for a house cat and see what it gets you. I cursed, turned, and ran. They saw me break and smiled the way men smile when the hunt has gotten easy, telling me I could not escape. I knew that. I was not trying to. I was buying distance and nothing else. I pulled out the Thundersea scroll and threw it back at them with genuine pain on my face. 400,000 white stone, out of my hand, into the air. They saw something small come flying and did not slow down, because in their eyes, an ant like me could not be holding anything worth respecting, and they simply struck at it as they came. Then the scroll opened and a blue sea of lightning swallowed both of them. Their faces changed all the way through. They felt it land as a fatal threat, and a sphere of blood snapped into place around each of them. The protection held for one instant before it shattered, and the bolts went straight into their bodies. I turned around and watched the two of them come down badly broken. The thunder sea faded out. I walked over and looked at what was left, and there was nothing recognizable in it. Something cold settled behind my eyes. I still did not know who wanted me dead. Yan-un and his father were the obvious guess, and the guess was not proof. So I made myself a promise instead. Whoever it was, I'd better hope I never find out, because I will come for their life. Revenge keeps for 10 years if it has to. I would rather have taken it that afternoon, and I was not stupid enough to try, so I swallowed it and put it somewhere I could find it later. In the shop, the two watchers were considerably less relaxed. Neither had expected the kid to be holding a card like that, and both of them privately thanked the corpses in the street for absorbing a disaster that would otherwise have landed on them. The man in black sighed and said that they had thought they were getting out of this alive, and now they had to go do it themselves. The blue robe hesitated and asked what would happen if I had another card like that, because dying for nothing was a poor way to end an evening. The man in black said that was impossible, since he had heard Lee Chung-han bid on a magic scroll at the Yeonjun Trading Company. This had to be that item, because Ha-shin himself would never own such a thing. The blue robe accepted it and said they should go send me on my way. The man in black said, hard and flat, that I ought to be honored to have the two of them escorting me. They drained the last of the wine in their cups, stood up together, went out through the second-floor window and came for me. Lee Chung-han and Yun-un reached the Destiny Zone in time to see a sea of lightning hanging over one district, and she knew for certain then and drove her mount straight at it. He kept pace behind her, quietly regretting things. He had not expected her to hand a gold magic scroll to me, and with that in my pocket, killing me was going to be difficult. They arrived exactly as two men dropped out of a second-floor window and came down at me. She had no time to reach me and shouted at them to stop. Yun-un's eyes went wide, because these two were not his, and he had no idea whose they were. Then the surprise turned into pleasure, because whoever had sent them was doing his work for him, and this was a better evening than he had planned. I was still standing over the bodies thinking, when her shout hit me. I turned and saw the two of them coming off the building across from me. Again? Seriously? My body was already wrecked, and going head-on with two more was not a decision, but a way to die. There was also no telling whether these two carried the same trick around Shiano's rules, and I was not gambling my life to find out. So I took out the gold scroll I had been hoarding for exactly this kind of night, frozen 1,000 miles, and threw it at them with everything I had left. Then I shifted into my Saint Dragon form, opened my holy dragon wings, and got out low and fast. I had no idea what that scroll's radius was, and I had no interest in learning it from the inside. The man in black and the man in blue saw another scroll coming and dodged instead of swatting it. It did not help. The scroll broke open, and a killing cold rolled outward and folded over both of them. And shock and refusal crossed both faces at once. They had not believed the ant had a second card, let alone one bigger than the first. The cold kept going. 500 meters of street turned into a field of ice crystals, roads and buildings and everything standing on them frozen solid. A lot of people who had nothing to do with any of this got caught in it. I barely cleared the edge myself. I pulled up, turned, and looked back at the two men who had come to kill me, both of them locked in place. I let out a long breath with my heart still hammering. Another second, and I would have been standing in there with them. Lee Chung-han and Yun-un watched the whole thing and both of their pupils shrank. Neither had expected me to be carrying something with that much weight in it. He glanced sideways at her and decided she had given me this one too, since it was an ice attribute scroll and the connection made itself. She was quietly amazed as well, and thinking that I really did keep an unreasonable number of good things in my pockets. The two of them landed beside me at the same moment and looked at me. She asked whether I was all right, and there was real concern in her eyes. I let the Saint Dragon form go and glanced at Yeon-un, because I could not work out what he was doing here. I told her I was fine and that it was thanks to her scroll, and I meant it, because without that scroll I would have been finished. Then I asked why she had come back at all, and she told me how Yun-un had ridden up alongside her with the news. Something turned over in my head, and I looked at Yun-un with a great deal of meaning and said that in that case I owed young Master Yan even deeper thanks. He caught the suspicion and did not flinch because these particular killers were not his, and there was nothing here for Lee Chung-han to find. Both sets were dead anyway. He smiled and told me there was no need, that young Master Ha was a good man with good fortune, and that he had barely helped. I told him that regardless, I owed him this favor, and that I would certainly repay it in full someday. He heard exactly what was living under that sentence, narrowed his eyes, and said with a smile that he would look forward to my repayment. Then a teleportation gate opened in the air beside me, and I knew my day here was done. I told Miss Lee I was looking forward to the next time. She nodded and said she was too. I said farewell and stepped through without dragging it out. She watched the gate close and stood there a while thinking about what I would look like the next time we stood in the same room. Whatever else she was uncertain about, she was certain of one thing, that I was not an ordinary man and that our next meeting would come with a surprise attached. Yun-un watched the same empty air and came to a different conclusion, which was that I needed to be removed quickly. He had only caught a glimpse of that Saint Dragon form, and a glimpse had been enough to tell him it was not a normal thing. If I got the chance to grow, I would become his problem. He told her that since the situation here was settled, he would stop taking up her time and said his farewell. For once, he did not press her for another hour of her company, because he had loose ends of his own to tie off, before somebody tripped over one. She was mildly surprised and entirely pleased, and told young Master Yon goodbye and said she needed to leave as well. They got into their carriages and left the Destiny Zone in opposite directions. Not long after they cleared the area, 3 people arrived from 3 different directions. Each of them took in the scene, and above all the 4 dead soldiers lying in it. And each of their faces did something different. The 3 looked at one another, and then they left, one after another. In a room at the Yunjong Trading Company, one of the 3 reported quietly that it had failed. Baekpyong's expression came apart and he turned a cold eye on the man, who did not so much as blink before laying out everything he had seen. Baekpyong said he had not expected Lee Chung-han to value this Ha-Shin enough to hand him 2 gold magic scrolls. His face was ugly. He was deeply displeased that I was still breathing. When he had his expression back under control, he ordered the man to find out who had sent the second pair. The man acknowledged it and left, and Baekpyong said to nobody at all that Ha-Shin had better manage to survive. 2 more months. In a courtyard in the north capital of Chenlo City, Changchang Byun sat in a green robe embroidered with dragons, tasting tea, with a beautiful woman standing behind him working his shoulders. One of the 3 walked in and told him it had failed. His face changed and he snapped that they were useless, that 2 king ranks could not put down 1 small lord. Then he demanded to hear exactly what had happened, and the man recounted it and went still. Changchang Byun said he had not expected Lee Chung-han to place such value on this little lord, and admitted that the woman clearly had some foresight in her. Then he told the man to go prepare his own things for the heavenly mandate trial, and the man acknowledged it and went. Alone with his tea, he asked the heir what exactly that bloodline was, and said it seemed he would have to collect it himself. If I had been standing in that courtyard, I would have known him instantly, because that man was the Azure Sea Dragon King I had met at the bottom of the sea. He had sent people after me for one reason. When we crossed paths at the Yunjong Trading Company, he had felt a Dragon Clan bloodline on me, and it had pulled at him. He knew with complete clarity that if he could take my bloodline, he would break through to something higher. So he had sent men to kill me for it, and to keep his brothers from noticing what he was chasing, he had used Lee Chung-han as his cover story. What he had not planned for was my luck. He told the empty room that I had nowhere left to run, and his eyes burned as though he could already see the version of himself that had swallowed what was mine. The last of the 3 went to the dead center of Cheonmo City, into the central capital, and inside the core of that district to another place entirely, the city lord's mansion. He reported to a middle-aged man in a white robe, and unlike the other 2, who had only seen the aftermath, he described the whole thing from the first strike against me to the last. The middle-aged man waved him out. Then the city lord of Cheonmo City sat with it. He said my name and called me interesting, and said he had not expected somebody like me to surface in this heavenly mandate trial. Then he asked the empty room how I had come by the Cheonmo purple cloud token. He thought about that for a long moment without giving anything away, and finally said very quietly that it was time for the structure of Cheonmo City to change. I knew none of it. By then I was already standing in my own lord's manor. A surprised voice greeted me as a lord returning, and I turned to find Cat Shadow. Before I could get a word out, Mori and Mayo Ryong came out of the room behind her. I asked whether the 3 of them were the only ones home, and Cat Shadow said yes, that the other sisters had all gone out hunting. I nodded and did not go looking for them, because it was nearly dark. There was no sense chasing people across an island when I was bleeding inside and needed treatment more than company. I had barely sat down in my own room before Cheonmo spoke, because a loophole in the rules had exposed the Lord to a fatal threat. A random gift package would be issued as compensation. That stopped me. Compensation. From Cheonmo, unprompted. Then again it tracked. The oversight had genuinely failed, and the responsibility for that was not mine. I simply had not expected the system to admit it. A small gift box sat in the air in front of me, and I looked at it with a great deal of hope, because after the day I had just survived, I felt owed. I opened it on the spot, and 2 things came out, a book and a golden orb. I stared at the orb and my whole face changed, because I knew exactly what it was. A talent orb. I pull the orb's information up before I've even settled properly on the bed. My second talent slot is still empty, and this is the first real chance I have had to fill it. The panel names it a War God talent orb at gold quality, and it tells me that using it grants the legendary War God talent. That is what stops me. This is a designated orb and not a random roll, which means one use buys me a guaranteed legendary talent, and the name alone tells me what kind. Combat power. After Cheonmo City, there is nothing on this world I want more. Ever since I walked those streets, my need to get stronger has stopped being a preference and started being a schedule. Somebody in the Destiny Zone paid to have me killed, which is a very loud way of telling a man how badly certain people want him gone. I have 2 months while Cheonmo's rules are still strict and still hold the knives at bay, and I intend to spend every single day of them climbing. After that, the leash comes off and the world stops pretending to be polite. I use the orb without hesitating. The knowledge arrives the moment the light finishes. War God is a cousin of Frenzy, in the sense that both raise combat power, and that is where the family resemblance ends. Frenzy leaves you wrung out and weak once it drops, and War God does not. And War God also holds far longer. Neither of those is the real prize. The real prize is that the increase is multiplied rather than added, and multiplication is what turns a strong man into a problem. Of course there is a catch. There is always a catch. The talent has 3 levels, and none of them are active out of the box, because each level demands that I feed it specific items before it will turn on. I have never heard of a single one of them, which is a fine way to be handed a loaded weapon with no ammunition anywhere on the island. The payoff at least justifies the hunt. The first level doubles my combat power, the second takes it to 3 times, and the last one takes it to 5. I run the arithmetic because I cannot help myself. My base attributes sit a little over 80 points with nothing stacked on top, so call it 80 flat for the sake of clean numbers. Doubling puts every attribute at 160, which is roughly a level 18 ordinary epic hero, and roughly a level 15 ordinary legendary hero. That is only the first level. The second level puts me at 240. The third puts me at 400. 400 points is not a number people in the trials say out loud. By my estimate, that is about where a hero sits the day they first step into the Emperor tier, and that is a conventional hero with nothing external propping them up. This world is stuffed with natural treasures, and the longer an Emperor tier lives, the more of them they eat. A Spirit tier natural treasure raises attributes by 3 or 4 points and cannot take effect again for 4 years. Spirit tier is only 4th on the ladder, since the ranking runs Heaven, Earth, Profound, Spirit, and Origin from the top down. Do the math on that and it gets ugly fast. A hero with 10 such treasures gains at least 30 points a year, and 40 years of that is 300 points. That total by itself exceeds the single highest attribute an epic hero will ever reach, and that is the cheap tier. 40 years of Heaven tier treasures does not bear thinking about. The Veteran Emperor tier are not strong so much as unmeasurable, and I genuinely do not know whether there is any ceiling on what natural treasures can stack. If there is no ceiling at all, then the whole ladder is a joke with no punchline. Lee Chong-han's father is the example that keeps surfacing. Lee Chong-han was a trial taker 2 eras back, which puts him at 400 or 500 years old at minimum. I do not have a frame of reference for what that man is now, which is exactly why War God matters. Bring it to its 3rd level, and I stop being a promising newcomer and start being someone a veteran Emperor tier has to take seriously. So I go straight to the requirements for the 1st level, and the list is 5 items, every one of them gold quality. That is an outrageous ask. For most trial takers right now, a single gold quality item is a thing they will see in an auction hall and never touch. Handing this talent to an ordinary person would be a cruel prank, because they could not switch it on in a lifetime. The 5 are Divine Essence Fruit, Lifeblood Flower, Meridian Grass, Soul Nourishing Fluid, and Jade Muscle Vine. I have never heard of any of them. Finding them is one problem and paying for them is a second one, since I would be shocked if any of the 5 came in under 20 gold stone. Difficult or not, I am getting them, because doubling my combat power is not the kind of thing a man walks past. The Mansong shop is the obvious first stop, and I would bet the list has all 5, so at minimum I can learn the prices and stop guessing. There is also 100 transformations, which could in theory spit 1 out on a lucky roll. The odds are terrible. It is still a method. I put that aside and pick up the other thing the gift package gave me, which is a book. This is the 2nd book I have ever handled, and the first one was not exactly ancient history, since Cheonmo handed me the Demon Emperor art as a survival reward the same morning. The panel calls this one the Holy Demon Art at gold quality, a cultivation technique, and it says practicing it earns 100 experience points daily. There is a note attached saying only creatures with holy or demon attributes can practice it, which given the bloodline sitting in my chest is practically an invitation. So I hold the book and tell it silently to activate, and absolutely nothing happens. The prompt informs me that I do not meet the learning conditions, and when I ask, Chiano explains that the minimum requirement for learning any cultivation technique is general rank. I am a sergeant, 2 items out of 1 gift package, and I cannot use either of them today. That is a specific flavor of frustration where the food is on the table and my hands are tied behind the chair. I let the breath out and stop sulking about it. There is one thing I can do right now, so I sink into the Saint Dragon form and start closing the damage the assassins left in me. The healing takes what it takes. When I stand up and walk out of the house, the light outside has gone soft, and Huahua and Windsor are coming through the gate. Every one of them lights up when they see me, and Huahua does not bother with the walking part, since she runs, jumps, and simply attaches herself to me. I catch her and look past her at Windsor and the rest, and something in my chest that has been clenched since Chiono City finally lets go. My own territory really is the best place in this world. It is barely more than a fenced village right now, and it still manages to be the one patch of ground where I can breathe and feel safe. They crowd around with questions and I answer them, telling them I am fine and leaving the injuries out of it entirely. The wounds are closed and in the past, and saying anything would only buy me a week of worried faces. Dark Moon is not among them, and when I ask Windsor about it, she tells me Dark Moon has night duty on the tower ship. So I send them all off to rest and walk down to the military area myself. I set down the troop nest I bought, then spend the coins to summon every troop the nests will currently give me. Troops come with summoning limits, so the earlier you pull them, the sooner the counter resets, and a night saved is a night saved. When I get back to the Lord's Manor, the whole courtyard is mid-dinner, so I sit down and eat and let the conversation run over me. The evening ends the way I like evenings to end, which is washed up, on my own bed, with items to sort. Windsor handed me the day's haul earlier, everything from the morning's fishing and the whole day of hunting, and it comes to 3 pieces total, 2 green and 1 blue. Hunting is simply not a reliable way to pull high-quality items out of this world, and 3 is what 3 is. The first is a card, and the panel calls it a Rapid Shooter Profession card at green quality, which lets a commoner obtain the excellent quality profession of Rapid Shooter. My interest is not in the card. It is in what the card admits, because if a commoner can take a profession, then a commoner who takes one is effectively the same as a summoned troop. That is a very large door to leave standing open. For me personally, the item is close to useless, since I have troop nests and can summon proper soldiers without raising anyone by hand. Some people are still worth raising though, and the Mayo Ryong sisters are exactly that. Both of them have real talent, and with the right professions they would be worth far more than they already are. I run 100 transformations on the card without specifying a type at all, purely random. Purple light comes up, which means I jumped 2 grades, and I am not going to pretend I am unhappy about it. What lands in my hand is still a card. The panel calls it a profession elimination card at purple quality, and it says it can eliminate one of my professions, provided that profession does not exceed epic quality. That one makes me sit with it for a while. My profession is Ice Element Messenger and it is epic, which means this card works on me. Use it and the slot empties, and an empty slot is a blank check to become something else entirely. Outside of the special case of hero, a person gets exactly 1 profession for their whole life, so the chance to trade it in is the kind of opportunity people would sell organs for. I put it away anyway. I have nothing to change into yet, and Ice Element Messenger has been good to me. The real cost is the skills, because eliminating the profession takes every skill I built on top of it and drops me back at 0. That said, I am not going to stop looking. If a legendary quality profession ever crosses my path, I will burn this card the same hour and not lose a minute of sleep. The temporary drop in power afterward does not scare me either, because the Saint Dragon form and the Demon Dragon form carry enough skills between them to cover the gap. Next item is a small golden brocade pouch, a coin gift pack at green quality, which grants a random amount of coins on use. I picked it up on purpose because anything tied to money tends to reward a transformation roll, and a good roll on a money item can be a very good day. I go random again. Blue light. Luck has decided it is done being generous with me tonight. What I am holding now is a golden gem with a few simple purple and white stripes running through it, and the panel calls it a coin inlay gem at blue quality. Set it into a weapon or a piece of equipment, and killing monsters with that gear has a chance to drop coins. The note says a blue gem has a high chance of white stone, a low chance of purple stone, and an extremely low chance of gold stone. I grin at that, because I kill things constantly, and now killing things pays. The gem goes into my spear before I have finished reading the line twice. The last item is the blue one, and it is strange. It is a stone, pure black and faintly glossy, and the panel calls it a soul-devouring stone at blue quality. The panel says it is rumored to be the egg of a magical creature. Devour enough spirit crystal and it can hatch, though most people simply use it as a battery for spiritual energy. An egg. I tap it against the wall out of pure curiosity, and it is as solid as a river rock. So I test it. I set a piece of spirit crystal on top, and the energy inside drains away until the crystal collapses into ash. Then I set an element gem on it, and the stone ignores the gem completely. I stop experimenting there and feed it to 100 transformations, because whatever this is, it is not something I can afford right now. Even if it truly hatches, I do not have the years or the spirit crystal to raise a creature from scratch. The purple light fades and I am holding a stone again, this time with purple veins running through the black. The panel calls it a soul-devouring stone at purple quality with the same description, and then adds a note I have never seen before. It says that due to special reasons the stone has undergone a slight unpredictable change, which may bring me a surprise, or may bring me a fright. I have used 100 transformations more times than I can count, and this is the first time it has half worked. Not failed, exactly. Succeeded, and then declined to finish the job. Fine, maybe that is fate talking. Go sit in a corner, stone, and I will come back for you when I have resources to waste. Then the bedroom door opens, and Windsor walks in wearing a light red silk sleep set. My eyes go wide, because Hua is strolling in behind her without a trace of shame in her whole body. Morning arrives with a strange tingling numbness running through me, and when I open my eyes the culprit is Hua, being a menace. She has already started on breakfast, which is chicken and eggs, because Hua has developed a fixed policy on breakfast and those two things are non-negotiable. She is also incapable of eating an egg honestly, and has to play with it first. Windsor wakes up beside me and watches Hua eat with that particular longing of someone who wants the food and knows there is only one serving. She does not fight for it. She just gets up and leaves the house, and I watch her back go through the door with a certain helplessness, because that breakfast is easily large enough for two people. Hua reads Windsor's exit as a shot clock and speeds up. I make her drink a little soy milk to slow her down, and she settles. We walk out together into a courtyard already eating, and I join them and start handing out the day. Hua and Windsor and the rest go back out to sea for hunting and the day's resource fishing. Hachion Day I keep on land, because I want her in Tiger Mountain taking the troops out to kill demon beasts and push levels. Dalgi is still absent, since she never came back yesterday, and when I asked Windsor about it she said Dalgi is still aboard the tower ship with her evolution unfinished. That surprised me at the time, honestly. My own bloodline did not take anything like this long, and the only explanation I have is that her situation and mine are simply not the same process. The Mayo Ryom sisters go out with Tiger Mountain's group. I want those two getting real field time because their talents are built for battle, and sitting them at home would be a waste of both. Once the territory empties out, I walk to the Mansong shop alone to price the 5 things War God wants. Yo-Ah is behind the counter and Ja Hyungun is nowhere in sight. Yo-Ah brightens the second she sees me and asks whether I have come to buy something, and I tell her I have come to see whether there is anything I need. She opens the merchandise list for me and I go looking. All 5 are on the list. That is the good news and the end of the good news. They sit in an unpurchasable state for me, though nothing stops me reading the prices and the conditions. Lifeblood flower, meridian grass, and jade muscle vine are all priced the same at 25 gold stone each. All 3 require a level 2 customer, so 9 gold stone goes on my customer rank before I can even bid. Divine essence fruit and soul nourishing fluid are worse at 30 and 33 gold stone, and both demand a level 3 customer. Added up and collecting all 5 costs me 237 gold stone at this shop. My current daily income is about 2 gold stone. That is 200 days of saving without spending a coin on anything else, and I refuse to live like that for more than half a year. My income will climb as I get stronger, obviously, but even a generous curve does not put that pile in my hands anytime soon. What it tells me is that finding new ways to make goldstone has just moved to the top of my list. I buy nothing. There is nothing here I absolutely must have today, so the money stays where it is. Leaving the shop, I decide to go hunting alone, and alone is the point, because I want combat time rather than a comfortable kill count. I head for the northern mountains. Since the last time I met Elder Mok, he mentioned that other races live up there. 2 birds. I improve my strength and I go looking for tribes, because when it comes to population I will take anyone who walks. Territory upgrades have population requirements, and summoning cards can just barely carry me through the early tiers. Later on I will need people by the thousands, and cards will be a teaspoon against a lake. They also cost a great deal of money, which is money I would rather keep. Once I am into the mountains I shift into the demon dragon form and start moving through the jungle, and anything I meet I kill. What makes me happy is not the experience, since these are low-level white and green quality beasts. It is that they occasionally drop currency, a few white stone here, a dozen there, and I will take every one of them, because enough small piles become a gold stone eventually and the corpses sell on top of that. Suddenly hunting is a business. I put down a level 12 green quality beast called a green pattern snake, sell the corpse, and pick a scroll up off the ground, which is my first item drop of the day. The panel calls it a one-time building and construction scroll at green quality, and it lets me raise any building of green quality or lower without consuming a single material. That is a very good thing to find, and I am already going through my spatial ring before I have finished reading. What I am after is the Mermaid Growth Pool construction blueprint. Green quality. a building exclusive to the merfolk and used for hatching mermaids, where juveniles grow better and faster. Its requirements are 200 water rime wood, 200 sea tomb stone, 20 water element gems, and 5 light element gems. I have wanted that pool for a while and have never had the materials. The Mansong shop stocks all of it for level 2 customers, and buying the full set would have cost a small fortune I did not have the first time I walked in there. Now I do not have to buy anything at all. I put both items away and my mood improves considerably, because my merfolk hero is finally going to grow up. I hunt straight through the morning without a real break, and by midday my body and my head have both had enough. I find a spot to sit and take out the food I asked Mori to pack before I left. While I eat, I open the world chat channel, which I have not looked at in days. Today is the first day of a new month, and Xianmo has done nothing, which makes me curious whether the other lords out on the sea got the same silence. They did not. The channel is one long panic about territory cores. People are shouting that everyone needs to establish a territory immediately, or the Corvo's dead next month, and they end up as wandering heroes instead of lords. One man has already given up and says he is coasting on fate and that being a wandering hero feels fine. Another is chewing his own hand off with regret, saying he was offered 30 gold stone for his core in the Chianmo Islands and turned it down. Somebody else says his friend traded a core for a house in the Chianmo Islands, plus 40 gold stone. A third asks in genuine disbelief whether cores are really worth that, and whether anyone is still buying. Then a man says the offer he refused in Chianmo City was 200 gold stone. The channel splits between envy that he got in at all, and warnings that Chianmo City is a meat grinder. The last stretch is where it gets interesting to me. One survivor testifies that he was sitting in the Destiny Zone eating a meal when a cold air came down and froze the man across the table from him to death. He says his legs gave out on the spot. Another says he opened a door on his way to spend the evening with a female lord and found the whole room turned to ice. From there, the channel becomes a wall of people cursing whoever did it in every direction, and by the volume alone, quite a few of them got caught in it. I close the channel with a completely level face. They are all busy cursing somebody in Xianmo City, and what would any of that have to do with a novice lord like me? The useful part of that whole mess is confirmation. Xianmo did issue an announcement to everyone who has not established a territory yet, telling them the core dies this month, which is information Li Chonghan already gave me. What is new is the shape of it, which is that Xianmo does not treat everyone the same way and tailors her methods to the person, which raises the question of what my disaster test looks like this month, because I am the only lord with a territory standing, and there is not a chance Xianmo lets me skate. I do not know when it comes. I do not even know whether it has already started, and I have simply failed to notice. Xianmo has not offered a single notification, which is exactly the sort of quiet that eats at a man. Afternoon hunting goes better and worse at once. A morning of walking has put me deep enough that stronger beasts start showing up, and I have still not seen a second item drop since the scroll. Then I slow down, because there is something standing in the trees ahead of me. I read it first. Thunderlion, blue quality, level 18, strength 140, agility 101, defense 129, with thunder body, thunder flash, thunder lightball, and thunder net for skills. That distribution is what makes me stare. A normal blue beast at level 18 averages 120 points per attribute for 360 total, and this one carries 370 spread unevenly. It has eaten something that raised its attributes, and then it has reallocated the points on purpose. I know that past general rank you get to assign your own points instead of having them averaged for you. I have simply never met a demon beast that clearly went in and rebuilt its own build. Its strength alone sits at a flat 140. Mine is 83, and that 83 already includes whatever it was I ate at the Yonjong Trading Company yesterday. I do the sums the way I always do. The Heavenly Dragon Spear adds 40% to strength, which is 33 points, and the Demon Dragon form adds 20% across the board, which is another 16. That puts me at 132 strength. Still short, and the gaps in my other attributes are worse than that one. In a straight fight, I lose, so I stop planning to have a straight fight. I take out my last magic scroll, a blue quality Demon Vine Entanglement, which casts strong single target control with some damage attached. I throw the scroll and light up everything I have at once. Magic Dragon Wings, Demon Blood Boiling, Fighting Demon Dragon Armor. Then I close the distance in my strongest form, because I have no idea how long the scroll holds. The Thunder Lion feels the skills go off and whips around, and its eyes lock onto me. That is exactly what I wanted, since it means it never looks down at the little scroll landing under its feet. Dark green vines burst out of the ground and wrap it, thorns sinking straight through hide into muscle. It bleeds, roars, and fires off Thunder Body, its whole frame throwing white-blue light while it fights the vines, and the harder it fights, the tighter they draw. Then it turns its head toward me, opens its jaws wide, and starts gathering a Thunderlight Ball in its mouth. I cannot promise myself I dodge that. I do not have to, because a vine whips up and clamps its jaw shut before the ball finishes. That is the whole fight decided right there, and I move faster than I have all day. I am at its flank in a heartbeat with my spear going out like something with its own opinion. Straight for the eye. It tries to twist away and the vines will not let it. The spear goes in clean. It screams and I ignore the sound completely, working the shaft to ruin whatever is behind that socket, and then it drops. And then it is a thread of light going out. Something dropped. Every hunt should end that politely. I pick the drop up and read it, and it is a large beast tide summoning card at purple quality, one-time use, which summons a large beast tide at a location I choose. The note underneath warns that the summoned tide answers to nobody, attacks every creature nearby, and should be used with caution. A blue quality monster dropping a purple item is a probability so thin it barely deserves the name, and I hit it anyway. Useless to me though. There is no version of this world where I summon an uncontrolled beast tide anywhere near my own walls, which would be an elaborate way of committing suicide. So it becomes food for 100 transformations, and one grade up from purple is gold, and I would very much like the gold thing to be something I can use immediately. If it comes out as a gold quality building, I will be standing there holding blueprints I cannot afford to raise. I put it away and open my information panel, since that kill pushed me over the line. My name sits at the top with that long identification string I have never once needed, and under it I read level 10 with 41 experience out of 1400, rank sergeant, strength 93 with 37 added on, agility 91 with 9.1 and 27.3 stacked over it, defense reads 94 with 5 and 28.2 on top, intelligence 92 flat, and mana 920. My profession still reads hero and ice element messenger. My skills are spirit eye, the green water arrow technique, the green shield, the purple freezing spell, and the purple mystic ice puppet. Equipment lists the gold heavenly dragon spear, a green ring, the purple cloud stepping boots. Talents read 100 transformations and war god. Both legendary. My bloodline reads holy demonic dragon, and my title still says first city lord under heaven. I smile at it because my strength now lands at 100, with everything counted and the rest sit close behind. With the holy demonic dragon bloodline running, I can take a level 16 epic hero, or a level 14 legendary hero and expect to win. The fine print on that claim is that those heroes have no external enhancement and no equipment, and if they have either one, I am back to losing. I close the panel and keep moving, because there is an afternoon left and I do not get these hours back. The level does make a difference, and the next fights come easier. Then I put down a level 12 blue monster called the Bloodvine, and here's something I have not heard out here before, which is footsteps. Several sets, scattered, coming closer. Intelligent races on this island. I beat my wings once and get myself off the trail quietly, then settle in to watch. What comes into view is a group of people, and people is the right word with an asterisk. They look human and stand about 1.3 meters tall, all of them male. Broad as loaded doors. I read the one in front. Ball done, excellent quality, level 10, sergeant rank, strength 54, agility 53, defense 55, profession warrior with rage, great hammer, and heavy blow. Race earth cave dwarfs. I check the others too, and they run around level 10, mostly excellent quality with attributes below his. Two things about those panels bother me. The first is that Spirit Eye showed me a race line at all, which it has never done before. Maybe that is because I have used the skill so heavily, or maybe monsters like the Thunder Lion simply do not carry one. I will read Myo Ryong when I get home and find out. The second thing is bigger. These dwarves have professions and skills, and they are not heroes, and I am absolutely certain there is no other lord on this island, so they cannot be summoned troops either. Whatever the Earth Cave dwarves are, they are running on rules nobody has explained to me. The group reaches the corpse of the monster plant I left behind, checks the area, then checks the body. Balden's face opens right up, and he calls out the corpse's level to the others, and all of them get visibly excited. Then they hoist the thing and carry it off in a very good mood. I go after them, quietly, because I have found them and I am not walking away from a tribe without at least seeing where it lives. They walk for about an hour before they push aside a patch of grass on the ground and vanish into it, one by one. I come up, move the grass, and find a tunnel 2 meters across, running down at an angle. So I take out the 2 treasures that let me change my shape, put on the face and frame of a dwarf, and go down after them. The tunnel is lit. Plants grow along it, giving off a soft white light, and when I read one, it turns out to be fluorescent grass, which does exactly what the name says and nothing else. I pick up the pace in the half-light until I have the group in sight again, and then I follow for a stretch of time I stop measuring. Then the tunnel opens, and I am standing at the edge of an enormous underground world. The dome above is packed solid with glowing fluorescent grass, and below it there is a camp, except calling it a camp insults it. Myo Ryong's people had a camp, This is a city, with a wall 6 meters high and, at my estimate, 1,000 meters to a side, sitting under the earth like it has always been there. Creatures move in and out through several gates. Most of them earth-cave dwarves, but not all. The group I followed carries their prize up to a gate, trades a few jokes with the guards, and walks straight in. Nobody checks anything. I watch a while longer to confirm that, then walk up to the gate with my shoulders back like a man who lives here, and I even greet the guards on my way past. Inside, I do what I always do in a place I know nothing about, which is find a tavern, order a cup of red agate wine, and sit down where the talk is. The wine is genuinely good. Acting rashly here would be idiotic, because one look at those walls tells me my territory could not take this city today, and information is cheaper than soldiers. The room is loud enough to hide in. Somebody near the middle calls out asking Balden how his haul went, and when I look over it is the same Balden I followed, dropping into a chair and ordering a glass. He takes a long pull and sets the glass down looking pleased with the world. Then he tells the two dwarves at his table, Grook and Horace, that luck was on his side today and he came out ahead. Grook immediately asks for the story. Balden says the great captain sent him up to the surface to hunt, and he got his hands on the corpse of a demonic plant at excellent quality. He tells it with the smugness of a man who intends to dine out on the story for a week. The other two make all the envious noises he was fishing for. Then Horace asks whether the rumor is true that the city lord wants to expand onto the surface. The whole tavern goes quiet at once, every head turning, because Balden is a professional and a member of the Dwarf City Guard. Balden does not actually know the city lord's intentions. What he knows is that the great captain has never mentioned any such thing. Being sent up to hunt has happened before purely to put better meat on the table, so he decides the rumor is nonsense. He announces to the room that of course it is false, and asks what the Earth Cave dwarves would even be if they lived on the surface. He says it loudly enough and confidently enough that it lands as truth. Horace shouts agreement that dwarves belong in the underground world. The rest of the room joins in, and the noise comes back up to where it was. I am the only one in the building who is not reassured. If the Earth Cave dwarves ever do push onto the surface, they will find my territory sooner rather than later. And then somebody has to lose. For now it reads as safe, which buys me time to grow, and time to grow is the only thing I ever ask for. Then a woman sits down across from me and calls for a glass of red agate wine from the bartender. She is wearing a tight leather vest and black shorts, and she glances at what I am drinking with a flicker of surprise and asks whether I like red agate wine as well. I tell her it is good wine, which it is, and privately decide to buy some to take home so Windsor and the others can try it. She tells me her name is Dillis and asks for mine, and I look into a pair of purple eyes and give her Heya, which is not my name at all. She says she will remember it, and drinks. I ask her why everyone in the room keeps looking at her, because they have been doing it since she walked in, and I am curious. She smiles like the question bores her and tells me to work the reason out myself. Then she tips her glass back, empties it, stands and goes. 2 steps toward the door she stops, turns, tells me I am very interesting, and keeps walking without waiting for a response. Which leaves me sitting there confused since I am currently wearing a dwarf's face and body, and I would love to know what part of that qualified as interesting. Possibly she just likes people who order her wine. I read her back before she reaches the door. Dillis. Epic quality, level 13. General rank. Strength 97, Agility 113, Defense 95, Intelligence 100, Mana 1000. Profession Hero and Assassin, with Stealth, Sudden Burst, Rapid Speed, Armor Break, and Demonic Transformation. Equipment is green speed boots, blue-purple scorpion armor, and a purple blood-breaking blade. Talent, Enchanting Eyes. Race, Blood Charm Tribe. That panel makes me sit up straight. This woman is a big shot. She is only epic quality and cannot stand next to Windsor on that measure. But she is already general rank and she carries a talent, and I am openly envious of both. Her ceiling is enormous. Push her quality to legendary, and she becomes one of the names people are afraid of. I came down here for a look at a dwarf tribe and nearly walked into a hero worth recruiting, and now she is gone with no promise of a second meeting. I drink and feel sorry for myself about it. Balden's voice cuts across the room, telling me that he admires me for daring to sit and drink with the Blood Rose. When I look over, half the tavern is watching me with something close to respect. I ask whether she is that frightening, and Horace asks in surprise whether I really do not know the Blood Rose, and decides out loud that I must not be from Dwarf City. I confirm it and tell them this is my first day here. What he just gave me for free is that Dwarf Citizen is not the only dwarf settlement in the underground world. That is the best news I have had all day, since it means nobody down here is going to look too hard at a strange dwarf. Combine that with the other races I have already seen inside the walls, and this place is clearly vast and tangled in ways I have not begun to map. So I move to Balden's table, sit down, and buy all 3 of them a glass, and ask them to introduce me to the Blood Rose. Balden laughs out loud with pleasure. The other 2 grin. and Grook assures me that a generous friend always gets the information he came for. Horus goes first. He says the Blood Rose is named Dillis, and that she is a cruel female butcher. She is supposed to have wiped out small tribes all over the underground world, and to have come to Dwarf City because she had worn out her welcome everywhere else. Baldwin agrees and adds that her strength is nothing to sneer at, and that the guard team tried to recruit her once and she turned them down. Grook and Horus both look startled at that, apparently not expecting their own guard to have wanted her. I ask whether there was any actual danger in me drinking with her. Baldwin says no, and then explains that Dillis is sick, and sometimes loses her mind and attacks whoever is closest. That is how she has ended up in the Dwarf City dungeon more than once. I nod and agree that there was, in fact, danger in sitting with her, and I think about that demonic transformation skill on her panel. It would explain a great deal if she cannot fully control it. Horus says I got lucky that she did not go crazy today, and I thank all three of them for the warning. I tell them my name is Heiha, that I am new to Dwarf City, and that I will be relying on my friends here. Baldwin and the other two thump their own chests in unison and declare that we are friends now. I raise my glass and touch it to theirs. That is the exact moment Shammo's voice arrives in my head. It comes as a global announcement saying the number of people who have established territories has reached 10,000, and that the territory disaster trial is now officially commencing. A second announcement follows it, naming this month's disaster the disaster of abundance, and this week's disaster the abundance of forests. Then a closing line about a new journey beginning, and a hope that more lords will establish their territories soon and start their true lord's journey. My first reaction is confusion, and it lasts about 2 seconds before it resolves. Lee Cheung-han and everyone else who bought their way in with a territory core has just planted their flags at once. I want the novice territory ranking list open immediately. I am also sitting in a dwarf tavern with 3 new friends watching my face, which is the worst possible place to start staring into the middle distance. So I put on an apologetic smile and tell them something important has come up that I have to deal with right now. I say I cannot drink my fill with them today, and that the next round is on the next meeting. Baldwin and the other two wave it off with big laughs and tell me to go handle my business, since there will be plenty of drinking ahead. I leave the tavern and I am halfway out of the city before I realize I forgot to buy the red agate wine. I walk out of Dwarf City without hurrying, because my territory could not take this place in a year, and there is nothing here that rewards panic. I need a plan and patience, not speed. Once I am back on the surface, I stop being patient entirely and run for home, dodging anything troublesome rather than fighting it. Even so, the sky is red with evening by the time my own walls come into view. Back in the Lord's Manor, I open the chat channel and find that everyone got the announcement this time. The entire channel is chewing on it, because 10,000 territories appearing in one breath is genuinely shocking, though plenty of people have already guessed why. Then I open the novice territory ranking list. First place is Heiha territory at level 2 village, which is mine. Second is 100 Flowers territory at level 3 village. Third, Howl territory. And fourth, 10,000 Demons territory. Fifth is Clear Wind territory. Sixth Element territory. 8,000 Islands territory. Ninth Ink Feather territory. Every one of them a level 3 village. I read down the list and it is a wall of level 3 villages with a single level 2 sitting on top of it. Out of the whole top 10, I recognize exactly one name, and it is the last one. Hanyu territory is Lee Cheung-han's, and she told me back in Chanmo City that this was what she would call it. I also catch Changchun territory sitting at 16th, and the first thing that surfaces is the Azure Sea Dragon King I ran into before. I do not chase the thought. With 10,000 territories going up in a day, a member of the Dragon Clan showing up somewhere in the list is not remarkable. What I actually care about is how much these people carried in with them. If the lords who bought their way into the Heavenly Mandate trial brought serious resources, then those of us who earned our way in get held underwater indefinitely and never come up. Lee Cheung-han told me they could bring only a very small amount, and I believe she said it honestly. I also remember what she is. These are people who will spend a full gold stone on one meal, and I am not confident that her small amount and my small amount are measured on the same scale. Either way, the pace has changed. I need to upgrade my territory faster. If the pattern holds, the first lord to push a territory up to a town gets a bonus, the same way I did for being first to establish one. I intend to be first again. I close the ranking and check the channel, and there is Lee Cheung-han's friend request waiting, which I accept. Her message arrives before I have done anything else, saying she had guessed I would stand out in this Heavenly Mandate trial, and had not expected me to reach this level. On her end, she is genuinely rattled, because she did not expect the leader of the entire trial to be me, and by this margin. She is also quietly congratulating herself for having listened to Seonga's advice and made a friend of me, since that friendship is about to be worth a great deal to her. The territory core bought her a seat and very little else. Gold quality items were capped, The total number of items she could carry could not exceed 10, and coins were capped at 20 gold stone. 20 gold stone puts her above everyone in the trial except me, and it still leaves her tight. Her ship is only a level 1 wooden ship, and upgrading it costs money she does not have spare. The spirit domain and the demon domain collide on the 3rd day of every month, and going into that with an unupgraded ship is a way to lose a great deal at once. So her life is currently rather cramped. It is also true that among all the newcomers in the entire Heavenly Mandate trial, there are perhaps a handful stronger than her. I tell her I got lucky, which is what I always say. Then I ask the thing I actually want to know, which is what resources her group brought in. She answers straight, without shaving anything off it, partly because the information is not especially sensitive, and partly because she wants the trust between us deeper than it is. When I read her numbers, I finally let my shoulders down, because nobody is coming to flatten us from a higher tier after all. She tells me she is somewhere in the Heavenly Mandate Sea, near the Seoljong Sea, and asks whether I know my own location. I do not, and saying so out loud is its own small humiliation. I used the fog map over breakfast this morning, and it laid out the geography within 5,000 kilometers of me, and revealed a handful of surrounding islands. Past that boundary, the world is still a solid wall of fog. The Heavenly Mandate Sea is simply too large. She tells me it does not matter, and that we will work it out eventually, and that for now the thing to do is keep building the territory. She is right, and I tell her so, because in the end the territory and my own strength are the only two numbers that matter. We talk a while longer about nothing in particular, and then I introduce Lee Keo and the others to her, so they can all get acquainted, and leave them to it. Then I go outside and burn the one-time building scroll in the mermaid growth pool. I put my mermaid hero into it and spend spirit crystal to fill it with growth fluid. And watching that pool come to life takes a weight off me I had stopped noticing. Walking back, I run into Dark Moon and Tiger Mountain, and the rest coming home, and we go in together. I pull up the territory information once I am inside. Heiha territory sits at level 2 village, with a level 2 lord's manor, a kitchen, a residential building, a well, a public toilet, an arrow tower, a lumberyard, and a quarry standing in it. My residence number 521 and my heroes under command number 8. I hold 21 troop nests, my troop strength reads 187, and my assets sit at 62 gold stone. The overall rating comes to 5,073. Under the upgrade conditions, it wants a level 3 lord's manor, lumberyard, quarry, residential building, well, and a medical room, all marked not achieved. The 400 resident requirement and the 2 hero requirement are both already green. The population jumped from 371 to 521 because I burned 150 civilian summoning cards, some bought with survival points and some with merit points. The troop nests are up to 21, with a blue quality flame shooter nest that came out of 100 transformations, plus 3 spearman nests and 2 rapid shooter nests, all green. Troop strength went from 80 to 187 off last night's mass summon. That brought in 40 regular militia, 50 rapid shooters and spearmen, and 15 flame shooters and healers. It also brought 1 each of the purple troops, the extreme ice giant bear and the night knight, for 107 bodies in total. My army has passed 100, which sounds better than it is, because the next summon window is a full month away, and until then the only way up is more nests. Once the medical room goes up tomorrow, I can push the territory to a level 1 village. Tiger Mountain speaks up then and reports that while her group was out training today, they found a camp belonging to another people, with humans inside it. That surprises me, since I did not think there were humans on this island at all, and I ask her how many and how strong. She answers plainly that there are probably over 100 of them. The strongest in the camp is only excellent quality at level 13, and he is a blacksmith rather than a professional. That week, I cannot keep the smile off my face, because I am in no position to reach into the underground world yet. But a camp like that I can absorb without breaking stride. I tell Tiger Mountain to take the troops out tomorrow, break the camp, and bring every one of them home, and she accepts the order. Then Sulkpan comes in from outside, stops in front of me, and says he has found something unusual, and my stomach tightens before he has said anything else. He tells me that this evening the trees around the territory suddenly started growing much faster. Fast enough that you can watch the difference over a short stretch of time. His face is somewhere between confused and afraid. I know exactly what it is the second he says it, because Chanmo announced the abundance of forests as this week's disaster. I spent an hour wondering how forests growing well could possibly be called a disaster. It sounded like a gift. I tell him to give me the details. He says that trees growing faster on its own would be no trouble at all and would actually make our timber gathering easier. The problem is that saplings have begun coming up around the territory walls, and his face tells me he already understands what that means. So do I, and my expression changes with his, because a ring of tall trees would strangle the territory and could seal us inside a forest we did not plant. Worse than that, forests carry monsters. Every meter the tree line advances extends the range monsters are willing to roam, and sooner or later something comes out of that new growth and hits my walls. I tell Xiao Pan to assign a crew tomorrow to clear everything growing near the walls and keep the perimeter from closing up, and he says he understands and goes. Alone, I sit with the phrase disaster of abundance and get less comfortable the longer I hold it. This week it is forests, and forests I can answer with axes. What happens if next week is an abundance of water, the rivers swell, and the barrier I so carefully designed becomes the wall of a bathtub with my people inside it? And what happens if there is an abundance of monsters? Because then my territory is under attack indefinitely and might well pull a full beast tide down on itself. I need the walls upgraded again, and I need my troops leveled, and both of those needed to start yesterday. I asked Dark Moon whether Windsor and Huahua are still on the boat. She nods and says she was the only one who came back, and then she hands over a pile of items and white stone from their underwater hunting. We eat dinner together and then everyone scatters to their own rooms. I settle on the sofa to run the day's 100 transformations, and instead find myself thinking about the underground world. Then I remember that Ye Baikpeng once picked up a territory core down there. My own core came from the merfolk and let me build under the sea. Hers would let me build under the earth, and after standing inside Dwarf City today, that is not a hypothetical I want to leave lying around. I message her immediately. Ye Baikpeng has just finished dealing with a monster that came up at her ship and is on her way back to the core cabin when the notification chimes. She opens the channel with a puzzled look and is faintly surprised to find the messages from Ha Xin. He asks whether she is willing to sell him a territory core. It makes no sense to her at first. He already has a territory, so a core is dead weight to him, and his merit points say he has killed enough demon domain lords to be tripping over spare cores. Since he is not short of ordinary cores, the core he wants must be a special one, and that thought takes her straight to the underground world core sitting unused in her storage. She does not say so. She simply replies that he should not be short on territory cores. I tell her flatly that the one I want is the underground lord's territory core she is holding. She asks what price I am offering and reminds me that a core is not cheap. Reading that, I relax, because a woman who is negotiating is a woman who is selling, and my real fear was a flat refusal. So I kick it back and ask what price she wants. She tells me she does not particularly want money. She asks whether I have any way for her to find an island quickly, since anyone who established a territory as fast as I did must have a method. That makes me frown, because my method was a special map and I burned it. Then it comes to me. The fog map might do the same job if the Mansong shop stocks one, so I tell her to wait for my answer and get moving. Jia Hyungun is behind the counter when I come through the door, and she looks surprised to see me this late, asking whether I need something urgently. She is wearing a purple nightgown and the effect is not lost on me, and I have exactly no attention to spare for it tonight. So I ask about the fog map straight out. She says they carry it and that it requires a level 2 customer, which sends my mood down because that is 9 gold stones spent before I can even buy it. She sees me hesitate and asks what I need the map for, so I explain Ye Baikpeng's problem. Then she tells me that in that case I should be buying a one-way map instead. When I admit I have never heard of it, she explains that the map does exactly what the name promises and reveals the geography in a single direction. I ask for the effect and the price. A green quality one shows 2,000 kilometers along one bearing and costs 1 gold stone, and a blue quality one shows 5,000 kilometers and costs 3. That will do nicely. I have her display the one-way map, take an image of the information, and send it straight to Ye Baikpeng. Her face lights up the moment she reads it, because she did not think he could produce anything like this. She answers fast, offering the territory core for 4 blue one-way maps. I answer just as fast that 4 green ones is my price. In truth, I would happily pay 1 blue and 3 green, and I lowball her precisely so I have room to climb. That deal cost me 6 gold stone, only 1 more than a blue fog map would have, and that is a number I can live with. Her opening ask would have cost me 12, which is not. She refuses, telling me I know perfectly well what a territory core is worth, and that 4 gold stone is an insult. I tell her a territory core has value only after you have found an island to put it on. A one-way map is cheap in absolute terms and worth far more than the core to her specifically. Her eyes flicker at that, because it is exactly right. The map is the most useful thing anyone has offered her in weeks, and the core in her hands is currently worth nothing at all. So I close it, saying I will swap one of the 4 for a blue one-way map, and that this is the end of my movement, and she takes the deal without another word. I buy 4 one-way maps for 6 gold stone and name her in the trading channel. Then I walk out of the Mansong shop with an underground world territory core in my ring, and a very good opinion of myself. Back in my bedroom, I finally get to today's 100 transformations. The first thing in is the purple large beast tide summoning card off the Thunder Lion, the one that summons an uncontrollable tide at a chosen point. Gold light comes up and a gold card lands in my palm. The panel reads it as a one-time unit summoning card at gold quality. which randomly summons 200 troops with at least one gold troop guaranteed. That is exactly what I asked the universe for. 200 troops in one card takes my army to 387 and doubles my strength outright, and more than doubles it if the roll comes in generous. I do not use it tonight because summoning 200 soldiers inside my own manor at bedtime is not a plan. It waits until morning. I run the 2 green items from resource fishing next and pull 2 blue ones back out. The first is a flame arrows and adds burn damage on top of ordinary damage. It wants 150 wood, 150 stone, and 10 fire element gems. The second is a medium spirit crystal mine resource card at blue quality, which grants the territory a medium spirit crystal mine. Neither is top shelf, and both are genuinely useful, which after a day like today is enough. I still have 1 resource card left over from fishing as well, a small iron mine resource card at green quality. Then I wash up and go to bed, where Dark Moon is waiting and the rest of that hour belongs to the 2 of us. I sleep well. The chat channel does not sleep at all. My trade with Ye Bakpung was over in seconds and somebody still caught it, screenshotted the trade record, and dropped it into the channel. And the channel detonates. People flood my name with friend requests, and every one of them bounces, because I set requests to refuse a long time ago and the alternative is being pestered into an early grave. When they realize I am unreachable, they all pivot and go after Ye Bakpung instead. By then, she has already burned a green one-way map and, with a stroke of luck, she did not earn. Found herself an island. She looks at the result with a satisfied little smile and remarks that her luck is clearly excellent, since 1 green quality map was all it took. And since the island is found, the maps left in her hands have gone from precious to dead weight. She decides to turn them into white stone and put the white stone into her ship. She opens the trade channel and lists the 2 remaining green quality maps and the single blue quality one, pricing the greens at 12,000 white stone and the blue at 30,000. She keeps the blue that low on purpose, because 30,000 white stone is already a sum only a tiny number of people in the whole trial can reach. Pushing higher would simply leave it unsold. The channel loses its mind. Somebody shouts at everyone to look at the trade channel, because Bakebong Kwang is selling. Somebody else says he cannot afford it, and a third complains that he cannot even find the listing. Then comes the realization that all 3 sold in seconds, and a wave of disbelief that there are that many rich big shots hiding in the trial. One man does the arithmetic out loud and says Bakebong Kwang just made 54,000 white stone in the time it takes to boil water, which he calls outrageous. After that, it turns into begging, people asking her not to hold out on them and swearing they are not short of money. Someone finally points out that the maps came from Big Shot Ha in the first place, and that they should be pestering him, and the reply is that nobody can reach him. Another decides the Big Shot is simply asleep at this hour. A fourth says that a man with a whole lord's manor probably has better company at night than a chat channel, and the entire channel agrees at length. Ye Bakepung reads none of it. She looks at the white stone that just landed in her account, smiles, and starts upgrading her ship. A lot of people did not sleep well that night, because the one-way map has just changed what finding an island means. Until now, the sea was a lottery and everyone was buying tickets with their lives. And now there is a product you can purchase. My name gets spammed across the channel for hours, and when the night ends, there are still crowds waiting for me to say something. I am not saying anything, because I am still in bed with Dark Moon and the morning belongs to us. That door stays closed. Afterward, the 2 of us bathe with Cat Shadow attending, and then we go out and eat what Mori has cooked. 2 days of testing have finally taught me what Mori's talent does, since the so-called empowerment talent means that cooking carries small effects, like clearing fatigue or granting a little experience. That is the whole of it for now, and it does not fire on every dish either. I am satisfied anyway. If that cooking ever reaches the level of rare treasures, I will be a very happy lord, and I know perfectly well that is a daydream at this stage. Over breakfast, I open the chat channel, see the state of it, and find private messages waiting from Lee Ko, Bakeseol, and a few others, all of them wanting to buy one-way maps. I tell them I will trade with them shortly. Then I keep Dark Moon back, because I want her moving with the troops today, and we go down to the military area with Tiger Mountain, Mayo Ryong, and the rest. I take out last night's gold summoning card and use it, and 200 troops come up out of the ground at once. There is not a single white troop among them. The floor is green. When I count it through, I have 150 green troops, made up of 100 shield bearers and 50 rapid shooters, plus 46 blue troops who are all berserkers. The last 3 are what make me grin, because 2 of them are purple flying troops, silver-winged griffins, and the third is a gold troop, an earth element controller. Every one of the 200 came in at level 4. Looking at them lined up, I also see the problem with the 187 I summoned before, which is that they are a jumble of everything with no shape to them. I need to start planning my troop nests deliberately instead of taking whatever 100 transformations hands me. An army made of odds and ends is an army nobody can give orders to in the middle of a fight. I split them there. I tell Dark Moon to take the Myo Ryong sisters and Hachyeongdae and lead these troops out to wipe the human camp they found yesterday. She is to leave a share of the soldiers behind for the walls. Tiger Mountain I put in command of the garrison, with instructions not to sit idle and to hunt monsters in the ground around the territory. Both of them nod and go. I go to the Mansong shop. Jia Yang-gun is at the counter again, and I ask her for 8 green one-way maps, which are not for me. They are for Li Kyo, Wang Mok, and 2 others, and all 4 are paying their own costs, since I am not taking a single white stone off my own people for this. She gives me a look with a question in it and asks nothing, because money spent in her shop is money spent in her shop, and she is delighted. I list the 8 in the trade channel at exactly what I paid, and hand 2 each to Baek Seol and Yu Pyong along with the rest. Then I pull out my flower card and find it has turned red, which stops me flat, because red means I have become a level 2 customer. I count it back, 1 gold stone on my first visit, 6 gold stone yesterday, 8 gold stone today, which is 15 total against a 10 gold stone threshold. I qualified without noticing, and that is when the actual idea arrives, because there are hundreds of people in that channel screaming for one-way maps, and I am standing inside the only shop that sells them. I can make a fortune and raise my customer level at the same time, using the same coins twice. My assets, ignoring loose change, sit at 56 gold stone. I buy 20 green one-way maps and list them at 12,000 white stone each, which is not a markup so much as a match, since that is precisely what Ye Baekpung charged yesterday. All 20 are gone almost immediately. I buy 20 more and list them and those go too. So I keep going, listing batch after batch, and by the end I am selling them at cost purely to keep my consumption number climbing. When the buying finally dries up completely, I add it all together. 105 one-way maps sold, 80 of them at 12,000, 10 at 11,000, and the last 15 at the original price. 17 gold stone of profit, and a customer level pushed all the way to level 3, which is a very good morning's work by any measure. The only pity is that the top 100 lords on the trial points list have been drained close to empty. They were the only people in the whole trial who could afford white stone at those numbers. I pulled up my flower card and found that it had turned yellow, with the consumption record sitting at 120 gold stone. That made me smile, because I had raised my customer level without spending a single stone of my own money. I had actually come out ahead on the whole arrangement. With the Mansong shop in my pocket, I could set myself up as a middleman for good and never look back. My assets came to 73 gold stone, and the 5 items I needed to activate the War God talent came to 138 all told, which meant I was halfway there. Halfway is still halfway. I have been broke long enough to know exactly what that word is worth. I pointed at the 5 items and asked Jia Hyungun whether any of them were likely to go out of stock. She shook her head and told me none of them were rare materials. I nodded and walked out of the Mansong shop without buying anything, because there was no reason to rush a set that did nothing until it was complete. The gold stone was better sitting in my hand where I could reach it, since I had a strong feeling I would need it soon. Behind me, Jia Hyungun watched me go with a small pleased smile, since this lord had handed her another surprise. Before I went back to the Lord's Manor, I checked my stockpiles and found over 6,000 wood and over 3,000 stone. The requirement to push the Lord's Manor to level 3 was 2,000 wood and 1,000 stone, so I upgraded it on the spot. The new manor did not give me a single extra room, but the place looked far better than it had. There was a covered corridor running around the courtyard now, and a decorative fountain sitting in the middle of it. Then I took out the medical room blueprint I had been holding on to. The panel described it as white quality and told me that a territory without a medical room could not guarantee the health of its residents. Building one would strengthen their sense of belonging, and it cost 200 wood and 50 stone, which was nothing at all. White quality was still quality, so I built it. What went up was a plain little house with shelves of medicinal herbs inside, and I could not identify a single one of them. I decided I could live with that. The territory upgrade conditions lit up green across the board, listing the level 3 Lord's Manor, the lumberyard, the quarry, the residential building, the well, and the medical room as achieved. 400 residents, achieved. 2 heroes, achieved. I did not stop to admire any of it, and went straight for the upgrade, and the system told me the cost would be 30,000 white stone. 30,000. The price had tripled since the last time, and I clicked my tongue at it before I confirmed anyway. Nothing happened. That is the part that got me, because the world looked exactly the same afterward as it had a second earlier, and there is no satisfaction in paying that kind of money for a silence. I still believe the territory upgrade did something real that I simply could not see yet, so I filed it away as a question for Lee Chung-han, who would almost certainly know. Then I opened the territory panel to see where I actually stood. Heiha territory set at level 1 village. The buildings list ran the level 3 Lord's Manor, the kitchen, the residential building, and the well. Then the public toilet, the arrow tower, the lumberyard, the quarry, and the medical room. 521 residents. 8 heroes under command. 21 troop nests, troop strength of 387, assets of 71 gold stone, and an overall rating of 5,873. The next tier wanted a level 4 Lord's Manor, a city wall, a tailor shop, and a blacksmith shop, all marked as not achieved. It also wanted 800 residents, also not achieved. The hero line was the only kind thing on the list, since it still asked for 2 heroes and only added that one of them had to be excellent quality. I had already cleared that. My 71 gold stone was mostly the work of that 10% discount, which had saved me 3,000 white stone outright. Folding my loose white stone back in brought the number out exactly even. The Lord's Manor was going to keep demanding upgrades forever. That much was obvious. 3 more buildings sounded worse than it was, since I already had a city wall standing and blueprints for both the tailor shop and the blacksmith shop. Residents were the headache the way they always are. 800 people, and I was sitting on a little over 500. If military troops counted toward the number, I would have walked straight through the gate, but that was pure wishful thinking and I knew it. What genuinely surprised me was that the hero requirement had not gone up in count at all, only in quality. I had a feeling that even when buildings started strangling me later, heroes would never be the thing that blocked an upgrade. 300 people short though. If Dark Moon's operation went the way it was supposed to, I would pick up something over 100 more, and that still left me staring at a wall. So I thought about the underground world again, the way I had been thinking about it since yesterday. Solve the underground world, and my resident count stops being a ceiling forever. The problem was that I could not solve it, not even a little, since I could not so much as crack Dwarf City open. I stroked my chin and turned over what I had picked up in that bar, which was that the underground world ran very wide. If it ran that wide, there had to be population in it that did not answer to Dwarf City. I had come back in a hurry yesterday without exploring any of it properly, so I needed to go down again and look around. There was also the small matter of an epic hero named Dillis, who interested me a great deal. I told Tiger Mountain to hold the territory while I was gone, and she took the post without a word of complaint. Then I left. By the time I reached the entrance to the underground world, it was nearly noon, which meant most of my day had gone into walking. That kind of waste puts me in a foul mood. I thought about my teleportation array and wondered whether the distance between my territory and this place fell inside the construction requirements. If it did, this entire commute stopped existing. I changed my appearance, walked into Dwarf City without any trouble, and picked a bar at random. At midday, the place was nearly empty. I ordered a glass of black juice stew, took one sip and frowned, because that stuff is genuinely awful. Then I asked the owner whether he had any connections for buying a house. I had 2 reasons for wanting. 1. The first was that I was going to be coming down here constantly and needed somewhere to appear from without making anyone curious about me. The second was that I wanted a teleportation array installed inside those walls. That would make the travel problem vanish, and when the day came that I moved on Dwarf City, it would drop my people directly inside the walls instead of outside them. Every good burglary starts with a lease. The owner looked up at me, surprised, and asked what kind of house I had in mind, warning me that houses were not cheap. I told him I wanted something quiet and on the large side, and that there would be a fee in it for him once it was done. He lit up at that and told me to call him Taruki, since everyone in Dwarf City knows the warm-hearted dwarf Taruki. I told him he could call me Heiha and asked whether he had anything that fit. He said he did, but that the house sat far from the city center in a very remote corner. Then he added that the owner was Bloodrose Dillis, who was not easy to deal with, and his eyes went strange when he said her name. Dillis. I had been standing there worrying about how to find her, and the man was handing her to me with a warning label attached. The remote location was exactly what I wanted, since a house in a busy district would have made it a nightmare to have my people materialize out of it later. I kept my face flat and told him none of that was a problem, and that he should take me there. Taruki blinked at me, clearly thrown that I had not reacted to Dillis' name at all. Then he saw the purple stone in my hand and stopped thinking about it entirely. He called someone over to watch the tavern and led me out the door. I put the stones away and followed him, using the walk to pump him for everything he knew about Dwarf City. When he worked out that I was an outsider, he was not the least bit surprised, and he introduced the city to me with real enthusiasm. By the end of that walk, I had a clear picture of Dwarf City's strength, and the picture was ugly. The city's defense sits on 2 legs, the Dwarf City Guard and the City Lord's Guard. The guard runs 3,000 strong under 3 commanders, and Taruki said the 3 commanders were all epic quality beings, though he had no idea of their levels. Baldin, the one I had run into yesterday, was only a captain over a 10-man squad, and Baldin was an excellent quality level 10 being, which meant a captain over 100 men was almost certainly general rank at minimum, and possibly epic quality outright. Taruki added that there were no ordinary quality beings anywhere in the guard, and that excellent was the floor. 3,000 excellent quality soldiers is not something I can touch right now, and that is before anyone mentions the City Lord's Guard. Taruki had nothing at all on the City Lord's Guard, which annoyed me more than I let on. Then he stopped and told me we had arrived. The house was large, and the gate alone stood 3 meters high and 2 meters wide. I told him we should go in and look, and I pushed the gate open and walked through. When I glanced back, Taruki was following me with visible fear, his eyes darting to every corner of the yard. The man was terrified of Dillis and had still walked in here to earn the money in my hand. The man would sell tickets to his own funeral to make rent. I ignored him and looked over the courtyard, which had over 100 square meters of open ground. Roofs lined both sides, and a 2-story building faced the main gate. I had barely taken a step when a figure dropped off the second floor and landed in front of us, and it was Dillis. Taruki immediately shuffled several steps closer to me and announced that he had brought her a customer who wanted to buy the house. She walked straight past him as though he were furniture, stopped in front of me, and asked with a half smile whether I was stalking her. I told her I had wanted to find her, and that the part about buying the house was also true. She stared at me for a while, weighing whatever she thought she was weighing, then said it had better be true, because she knew my secret. That puzzled me. I had no idea which secret of mine she thought she was holding, and it was entirely possible she was being mysterious on purpose so I would stay wary of her. Taruki, meanwhile, had worked out that the two of us already knew each other and quickly said he would leave us to talk. His feet did not move an inch while he said it, and he kept looking at me, which is the universal expression of a man waiting to be paid. I handed him 3 purple stone, told him it was his reward, and said I might need his help again. He clutched them and grinned wide enough to split his face, calling me a truly generous friend and telling me to come find him any time. Then he hurried out of the house like the yard was on fire, because standing near Dillis felt to him like standing beside a wild animal that might decide something at any second. Still, he thought the trade was well worth it. He had spent a little time and walked away with 3 purple stone, which is half a day of tavern profit. I knew none of what was in his head and would not have cared, since I had overpaid him deliberately. Tavern owners hear everything, and I intended to keep this one talking. I asked Dillis whether she was going to invite me to sit down. She shut the main gate, led me into the room at the center of the building, and casually poured me a glass of water, then told me to name my price for the house. I hopped up onto the chair, because there is nothing to be done about a dwarf's height. Then I turned and found the table was still above me, so I stood up on the chair like an idiot and asked her what price she wanted. She wanted 30 gold stone. I nearly fell off the chair. I asked whether she was serious, since her location was so remote it was practically outside the city, and she wanted that kind of money for it. She told me the house was very large and that she would not be selling it all if she were not in urgent need of money. She added that 30 gold stone was no loss for me. I shook my head and offered 20, which was as far as I intended to go. She looked at how set my face was, smiled, and suggested that she could keep my secret for me, and I could pay 30. That was the second time she had brought up a secret, so I smiled and asked her what secret I could possibly have. She said one word back at me, which was human. My chest jolted, and I kept my face exactly where it was and asked her what she was talking about, since I did not understand. She scoffed and told me she had seen through my identity yesterday. Then she asked why else she would have gone out of her way to come talk to me, and whether I really thought I was that special compared to every other dwarf in the city. At that point, I stopped pretending to myself that she was bluffing, because she was not. I asked whether it was because of her talent, thinking of enchanting eyes. Her expression shifted just slightly, and she clearly had not expected me to know that about her. She came up out of her seat with a short red blade in her hand and demanded to know how I knew and who exactly I was. I kept my voice level and told her not to get worked up, that I had not investigated her at all, and that I simply had a detection skill. I could feel how wary she was, so I told her we should talk openly and honestly. Gillis did not move and did not put the blade away. She just watched me and waited to hear what I would say. I told her she knew my identity and that I knew a few things about her, but that between the two of us I was clearly in the weaker position. She thought that over and had to agree, because most people in the underground world already knew what she was, so my knowing it changed nothing. All she needed to do was stay alert, in case I had designs on her. My hidden identity was a different animal entirely. A human cock concealing himself inside Dwarf City would have the entire guard hunting him, for the obvious reason that nobody sneaks in with good intentions. She dropped the subject and said she did not care how I knew, that she only wanted 30 gold stone for the house. She had calmed down by then, and privately she had decided that she was leaving Dwarf City anyway. Whatever I was scheming barely concerned her. The underground world was enormous, and she did not believe I would ever find her a second time. I asked, honestly confused, whether she was leaving, then saw her look and quickly explained that I had only assumed it because she was selling her home. She told me what she did was none of my business, and that all I had to do was say yes or no to the trade. So I told her yes, we could trade, and that I thought highly of her because she was worth 30 goldstone all by herself. Her brows came together at that, since I had put it far too bluntly, and she took it to mean I had taken a fancy to her. She asked whether I understood that she sometimes lost control and attacked everything in reach. I told her I was not afraid, that a problem like that could be solved, and that a hero is hard to come by, especially a hero with her potential. She pressed her lips together. Heroes might have more potential in the long run, but they were nowhere near as sought after down here as I was making it sound, and she did not entirely believe a word of it. Then something occurred to her, and she asked whether I wanted her to follow me. I told her I did and that I hoped for her help. She said fine, she could follow me and that I should hand over the 30 gold stones so she could take care of her own business and come find me afterward. I asked her whether she seriously believed I would agree to that, because it insulted my intelligence, and because if she never came back, my money would simply be gone. She pointed out that her house would still be in my hands. I told her I could buy the house for 20 gold stone and that would be the whole transaction. She informed me that keeping my secret from leaking raised the value of the house to 40. 40. I asked how the price had gone up. She looked openly impatient and told me that yes, the price had gone up and that the difference was hush money. Something in me soured. This woman was going to be exhausting for as long as I knew her, and I could already tell it was going to be worth it. I told her I could give her 30 gold stone, but that I wanted to know how she intended to guarantee she would not sell my secret. She corrected me and said 40. I said fine, 40. She smiled a little then and produced an item, and I read it the moment it was in the open. It was a contract scroll of blue quality which binds both parties once it is used, with violators punished directly by Chiano's rules. There was a note attached saying the strength of both parties could not exceed general rank. I sat there genuinely startled that such a thing existed at all. She told me that with it I would not have to worry about her leaking anything, and that 40 goldstone was no loss to me, since the scroll alone was worth serious money. I agreed with her and said it was my first time seeing a contract scroll, which made her ask, surprised, whether I actually knew what it was. I reminded her I had told her about my information skill and asked why she had not simply produced the scroll in the first place. She was still only half convinced. She took out a jade pendant and told me to say what it was. I looked at it and read that it was a void jade pendant, a special item, and that crushing it would open an unknown void small world.